Chapter 448. Xingxian's origin had always been mysterious. The only thing that Chu Fengmian knew about him was the battle dragon art. The battle dragon art was definitely not a martial technique that could be created in the 9 regions. At least in Chu Fengmian's knowledge, it was impossible for anyone in the 9 regions to create such a terrifying martial technique. It's nothing. It's an extremely precious item. It's your fortune to be able to obtain it. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Xingxian casually changed the topic. I know that you have a lot of questions, but you have to at least cultivate the first level of the battle dragon art to the greater completion before I can tell you. After saying that, Xingxian's voice disappeared. No matter how Chu Fengmian asked, he did not appear. I'm afraid that Xingxian's origin is from the extraterritorial starry sky. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the sky. Beyond the sky was the extraterritorial starry sky. No one knew how big the extraterritorial starry sky was. It wasn't impossible that Xingxian came from the extraterritorial starry sky. Forget it. Without strength, it's useless even if I know. Chu Fengmian shook his head. Without strength, it was useless for him to ask more questions. When he had the strength, Xingxian would naturally tell him. Chu Fengmian sat on the bed and continued to cultivate. He used the power of the sky crystal to perfect his body. 2 days passed in an instant. Young master, the Northern Mang Academy's assessment is about to begin. Outside the door, Tuoba Ding knocked and reminded. All right. Chu Fengmian opened his eyes and slowly got up. He opened the door and left. Han Yueli had already rested. Now, the 3 of them were heading towards the Northern Mang Academy. The location of the assessment was not in the Northern Mang Academy, but in a huge palace called the Northern Mang Palace. The palace was much larger than many cities. It was capable of accommodating millions of people. Chu Fengmian glanced around. There were more than 100 warriors who came to participate in the Northern Mang Academy's assessment. It was a spectacular sight. There are so many people. Han Yueli, who was standing at the side, was deeply shocked when he saw this scene. There were so many young talents from countless countries. All the geniuses in the northern region had come. This is normal. If there weren't so many people, the Northern Mang Academy wouldn't be so prosperous. Chu Fengmian said with a smile when he heard Han Yueli's words. He wasn't surprised at all. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian had seen the opening ceremony of the 7 great sects, and it was much more terrifying than this. After all, the 7 great sects were huge behemoths. When they opened their sects and accepted disciples, it wasn't just people from one region that would go. All the geniuses of the 9 regions would go. Compared to this, the momentum was much greater. So many young talents that participated in the assessment were selected to enter the Northern Mang Academy after being screened. Every disciple that entered the Northern Mang Academy was carefully selected. At the very least, they were 1 in 100 and were all geniuses. Not a single one of them was an ordinary person. When Tuoba Ding saw this, he sighed inwardly. He had participated in the assessment before, so he knew how cruel it was. The number of people who could truly enter the Northern Mang Academy was probably less than 1 in 100, and these people were only the most ordinary outer disciples. If they wanted to have a real position and be promoted to a core disciple, it would be even less than 1 in 100. Perhaps only 1 out of 10,000 people would be able to become an inner disciple. It was definitely a cruel test. As for the rest of the people, they were all like stepping stones. It was a cruel way of raising venomous insects. The Northern Mang Academy's method was to raise venomous insects. They had countless disciples and let them kill each other. Only those who stood out would be valued. As for those who failed, they could only remain in obscurity. Although it was cruel, it was the case in the 9 regions, where martial arts were respected. I can't take part in the assessment, so I can only watch from the outside. Tuoba Ding said to Chu Fengmian from aside. He was a disciple of the Northern Mang Academy, so he couldn't take part in the assessment. He could only leave the palace. After all, the assessment was one of the most important matters of the Northern Mang Academy. No problems were allowed. A young man walked into the palace. The young man was very handsome and had an imposing aura. He was obviously a disciple of a big family. Many people around Chu Fengmian started to discuss when they saw him. Look, the young master of the Yin family from the eastern state, Yin Gu, is here too. What a powerful aura. Although he is only at the 7th level of the divine power realm, his aura is comparable to that of a peak saint. We are in the same batch as such a genius. How can we compete with him? Don't worry. With his aptitude, he will definitely be pulled into the inner sect by some elders. Don't worry. Oh, this person is quite powerful. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he looked at Yin Gu. He quietly used his spiritual sense to investigate Yin Gu. Yin Gu was at the 7th level of the divine power realm, but his aura was comparable to that of a peak saint. He was definitely a famous genius. However, Chu Fengmian noticed that Yin Gu was hiding his strength. It was less than 1/10 of Yin Gu's true strength. Yin Gu's true strength was probably close to a battle index of 10, close to that of the flower-snatching venerable. This kind of strength was extremely conspicuous and famous among this batch of newcomers. Apart from Yin Gu, Chu Fengmian also saw that there were many experts hiding their strength among the crowd. It should be said that most of the experts present were hiding their strength. After all the participants were opponents. Therefore, no one would take the initiative to reveal their strength. Noon, the palace was already filled with people. Pong! With a loud sound, the palace doors closed. A tall martial artist suddenly stood up. This martial artist was at the 5th level of the life and death realm. His battle index had reached 200. He was an existence that Chu Fengmian couldn't contend against. This is Elder Su Ling, who is in charge of this batch's exam. Chu Fengmian looked at the 5th level life and death realm expert. Through Tuo Bading, he naturally knew who this person was. Tuo Bading had already told Chu Fengmian everything about the exam. Therefore, Chu Fengmian knew a lot of things in advance. Letting a 5th level life and death realm expert be in charge of the exam, North Sea Academy is really generous. Chu Fengmian looked at Elder Su Ling and thought to himself. Chapter 449. Elder Su Ling in front of him was much more powerful than anyone Chu Fengmian had ever seen in his life. Although Chu Fengmian had seen experts like flower-seizing venerable and Su family's old ancestor who had already reached the life and death realm, Chu Fengmian was no match for Elder Su Ling. However, he was still far from being able to contend against Elder Su Ling. Most likely, Elder Su Ling could kill a life and death expert like the Su family's old ancestor with a wave of his hand. Life and death realm. Every level had a huge gap, and it wasn't easy to surmount. Northern Mang Academy didn't have the intention of letting Elder Su Ling preside over this year's exam without showing off their strength. Presiding over the exam wasn't an easy task. Almost every one of the million martial artists present was a genius with extremely high aptitudes and were extremely arrogant. Among them, there were also some like Yin Gu, whose strength had already neared the life and death realm. If these examinees were to start a riot, it would be impossible to suppress them without sufficient strength. This Elder Su Ling had reached the 5th level of life and death realm, and his strength was astonishing. Only such a character could suppress these arrogant geniuses present. You should know the rules of Northern Mang Academy's exam. Hand over your Northern Mang medallion first, and someone will come to inspect it. Only those with the medallion can participate in the exam. Elder Su Ling coldly said. Following his words, several thousand venerables appeared one after another. These martial artists wore blue robes and were all Northern Mang Academy's disciples. One by one, they began to earnestly inspect the medallion. You don't have a medallion, so you don't have the qualifications to participate in this year's exam. Scram! Suddenly, there was a commotion in front of them. A martial artist who didn't seem to have a Northern Sea token was directly thrown out by one of the Northern Sea Academy's disciples. There was no explanation for this. Northern Mang Academy had always been incomparably tyrannical. When it was Chu Fengmian's turn, Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli handed over the medallion they had prepared. The Northern Mang Academy's disciple gave it a glance, then returned it to Chu Fengmian. However, 2 numbers suddenly appeared on the medallion's back. Han Yueli's was 103, while Chu Fengmian's was 961. All examinees, according to the order, walk in one by one. 100 people in a group will participate in the examination. Elder Su Ling yelled from above. Suddenly, the Northern Mang medallion in the hands of some of the warriors below started to flicker. The number on it was 1. A total of 100 people walked out together towards the inner part of the palace. The first group, the second group, the third group. The numbers on it were the groups. The speed at which the cultivators left was very fast. When one group left, the other group was called out as well. Next group, Elder Su Ling spoke again. The token in Hanyue Li's hand lit up. It's my turn. Hanyue Li looked back at Chu Fengyan, then walked out and left. Although the Beimang Academy's assessment was extremely difficult, Chu Fengyan wasn't worried that Hanyue Li would have any problems. After all, among this batch of newcomers, Chu Fengyan could only see a few that could contend against Hanyue Li. In her group, it would be easy for her to pass the examination. The number of warriors in the palace gradually decreased as they left. Finally, the token in Chu Fengyan's hand lit up. Chu Fengyan walked out from the crowd and walked into the inner part of the palace with the others. In the inner part of the palace, under the guidance of someone, they arrived at an incomparably huge arena. Arena Battle Royale. The Beimang Academy's assessment was extremely simple. It was an arena battle royale. Whoever could defeat everyone within 100 people would be able to directly enter the Beimang Academy. In this place, everything was meaningless. The only thing that could be relied on was strength. There's only one rule. All of you stand on the arena. Only one winner can enter the Beimang Academy. The rest will be eliminated. You can choose to admit defeat. As long as you admit defeat, there will be a force that can take you away. However, if you don't admit defeat and fight to the death, you can't blame others for your death. A disciple of the Beimang Academy explained the rules at the side. In Chu Fengyan's group, there were many who came to participate in the Beimang Academy's assessment for the first time. When they heard the cruel rules, their faces were slightly nervous. However, their faces soon calmed down. Those who dared to participate in the Beimang Academy were all slightly famous geniuses. Although the rules were cruel, no one was afraid. A bunch of trash. This young master advises you to admit defeat obediently. Otherwise, you won't even have the chance to admit defeat on the arena. A martial honorable said coldly. His words were full of arrogance. This was a young man. His eyes swept across Chu Fengyan's group with disdain. He seemed to be an extremely arrogant person. Tu Xiong, it's actually him. We're finished. Some warriors seemed to have recognized the young man's identity, and their faces turned pale. However, there were more people who didn't seem to know the young man's identity and asked one after another. Who is this person? He seems to be extremely powerful. This person is Tu Xiong. Although he's not a disciple of a big clan, it's said that he's obtained many fortuitous encounters and is extremely powerful. He participated in the previous assessment, but his luck wasn't good. He encountered a super expert whose strength was close to the life and death realm in his group. He fought for a long time before being defeated. His strength is enough to kill a peak saint. What? Someone who can contend with a life and death realm expert? Hearing that person's words, many people's faces turned pale. It was an absolute misfortune to be in the same group as such a ferocious person. Many people present were only at the first or second layer of the divine power realm. How could they contend with such a ferocious person? Tu Xiong coldly snorted when he heard the crowd's discussion. A bunch of trash. If you don't want to die, scram. Don't waste this young master's time. Some of the warriors who knew Tu Xiong's strength were extremely unwilling to accept this. However, they could only raise their hands and choose to admit defeat. On the arena, life and death were really up to fate. In an intense battle, it was hard to say whether one could admit defeat. If they couldn't, then they would die. I admit defeat. I admit defeat as well. About 8 people directly admitted defeat and left. They were all warriors who had participated in the previous assessment. They knew that they weren't Tu Xiong's match and directly left. Chapter 450. Most of these people who left were martial artists who had participated in the previous batch. Most of the people who stayed were participating for the first time. Although Tu Xiong was infamous, they still wanted to give a try. After all, the assessment was a chaotic battle. Two fists were no match for four hands. Perhaps they could take advantage of the chaos to get a chance. Tu Xiong looked around and saw that there were still many people who stayed. He said coldly, "Looks like all of you are courting death. Don't blame me for what happens next." His words were a direct threat, an undisguised threat. Many of the martial artists present were from large families. They were proud and arrogant. How could they bear such a threat? We don't know who will be the one who will die. Qing Li, a venerate cultivator and one of the best cultivators present, from the Qing clan, snorted coldly. You are right. Qing Li's strength was comparable to a peak saint. He was not afraid of Tu Xiong. Hearing Tu Xiong's threat, he retorted coldly. Hearing Qing Li's words, Tu Xiong turned to look at Qing Li. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Tu Xiong said ferociously, "I'll kill you when we get to the arena." "Come on then," Qing Li retorted, not to be outdone. "Is everyone ready? If no one admits defeat, let's get into the arena." A disciple from Northern Mang Academy said loudly. He opened a gap in the arena, and all the martial artists present rushed into it. There were countless restrictions on the arena to prevent the shock waves from spreading out. At the same time, it prevented the martial artists from leaving. The person who set up the restriction was probably extremely powerful. Chu Fumian observed for a while and knew that even he couldn't break the restriction easily. All of this showed how powerful Northern Mang Academy was. The arena was huge and could easily accommodate 100 people standing separately. Everyone had already chosen their positions. Many of the martial artists chose to stand at the edge of the arena or at the corner to prevent sneak attacks. After all, in a chaotic battle, everyone present was an enemy. Chu Fumian also chose a corner and stood at his original spot. His face was extremely calm. Among all the people on the stage, only one could be the victor. The rest of the people were all stepping stones. It was possible that they would be trampled on or even die. "Begin." The North Sea Academy's disciple cried out in alarm. All the martial artists in the arena suddenly released a burst of spiritual energy. Everyone unleashed their full power, but none of them took the initiative to attack. In such a chaotic battle, whoever acted rashly would most likely be surrounded and attacked. A bunch of trash. Tu Xiong stood on the stage and saw that no one was making a move. His eyes were filled with disdain as he looked at Qing Li. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Brat, I'll kill you first. Let those trash see. That's the fate of those who dare to oppose me." Tu Xiong's spiritual power burst out completely. This power wasn't weaker than that of an ordinary pinnacle saint. Tu Xiong's feet moved, and he immediately rushed in front of Qing Li. Spiritual energy erupted from his body, and his entire body became incomparably huge. He was 3 to 4 times the height of an ordinary warrior. Die! His fist smashed out, and the entire arena shook slightly. In the face of Tu Xiong's punch, Qing Li wasn't to be outdone. He suddenly drew his sword and slashed at Tu Xiong. This slash contained a bit of sword intent. The moment it was slashed out, the space hissed. These two people were the two most powerful people in the arena. Seeing Tu Xiong and Qing Li exchange blows, countless people in the arena quietly watched. Everyone wanted to be the last person to benefit from the fight between the clam and the fisherman. Boom! A punch and a sword. The two powerful spiritual energies instantly clashed. There was no technique to speak of in this exchange. It was a real clash of strength. "Brat, how dare you be so presumptuous in front of me with your little strength?" As the two forces clashed, Tu Xiong's face was filled with a cold smile. In the next instant, he threw out a punch that directly shattered Qing Li's sword. Not only did this punch break Qing Li's sword, but also forced him back a few steps. Qing Li spat out a mouthful of blood. "Impossible. My strength has clearly reached the level of a peak saint. How can I be defeated?" Qing Li looked at Tu Xiong in disbelief. Tu Xiong's strength seemed to be at the level of a peak saint. Qing Li's strength was the same. But now, Qing Li had been defeated so miserably. He didn't have the strength to fight back at all. Qing Li's eyes were filled with fear. Tu Xiong's strength had far exceeded his expectations. He wasn't someone he could contend against. Qingli was somewhat regretful. If he had known Tu Xiong's strength was so great, he definitely wouldn't have provoked him. But now, it was too late for regrets. I admit defeat. Before Qingli could finish his words, Tu Xiong had already moved. Tu Xiong's body had already moved. His feet moved, and he instantly appeared in front of Qingli. Suddenly, he threw a punch at Qingli's chest. Bang! Blood spurted out. Qingli's chest was directly smashed, and his internal organs were all shattered. Qingli didn't even have the time to admit defeat before he was killed by Tu Xiong. A slightly famous genius like him had died in Tu Xiong's hands, cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. How ruthless! Chu Fengyan thought to himself when he saw Tu Xiong's actions. When Tu Xiong attacked, he didn't give Qingli any chance to escape. He directly killed Qingli. Although one could choose to surrender in the arena, one could also be killed before he surrendered. Tu Xiong's method didn't give Qingli any chance to surrender, and he directly killed Qingli in an instant. Damn it, go kill him. If we don't kill him, none of us can win. A few figures suddenly moved. These few figures attacked Tu Xiong from all directions. Sabers, spears, swords, lances, and countless spiritual weapons appeared one after another and attacked Tu Xiong. Even Qingli couldn't withstand a single blow from Tu Xiong. Tu Xiong was already the biggest threat in the arena. The other warriors joined forces and attacked Tu Xiong at the same time. Countless martial skills blasted towards Tu Xiong. Every disciple who participated in the assessment wanted to win. Now, they were ready to besiege Tu Xiong and eliminate the biggest threat. Chapter 451. Tu Xiong's strength was far superior to the others. Therefore, many of the martial artists on the stage could not help but attack together. There were over 20 honorable martial artists attacking together. They surrounded Tu Xiong and attacked him. A bunch of trash. How dare you besiege me? You're courting death. Tu Xiong snorted, and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. His body moved, and the muscles on his body bulged. He suddenly exerted force and punched out. The compressed spiritual energy in the punch turned into a thunderbolt. Instantly, the countless warriors who besieged him dissipated in the explosion of the thunderbolt. Countless warriors in the surroundings were sent flying by the shockwave. How can this person be so powerful? Countless warriors were blasted away. Everyone's eyes were filled with horror. There were so many of them attacking Tu Xiong at the same time, but they couldn't do anything to him. Die! Tu Xiong evaded the crowd and snorted coldly. Then, he rushed toward the strongest middle-aged man in the crowd. Boom! With a punch, the middle-aged man's chest was directly penetrated, just like Qingli's. He was beaten to death. You pieces of trash can become my nutrients. I have the blood demona body, and I need the saint's blood essence to devour. Now all you must die. Tu Xiong laughed maniacally. The middle-aged man's blood essence had been completely devoured by him. His eyes swept across the arena again, and his figure changed continuously. Bang! 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 Another 3 martialists died at Tu Xiong's hands. The blood essence of those martialists was completely devoured by Tu Xiong and turned into power within his body. Oh no, this person is not someone we can deal with. Run. Seeing Tu Xiong killing in all directions, the expressions of some of the surrounding warriors changed. Their eyes were filled with fear as they hurriedly retreated, wanting to admit defeat. You want to admit defeat now? It's too late. You will all become my nutrients. I will use your blood essence to build my body. Tu Xiong laughed heartily as he charged forward. In an instant, the warriors who had besieged him were all killed by him. Countless pure saints' blood essences were devoured by him. After devouring so much saints' blood essence, Tu Xiong's strength had increased a little. This made him look at the remaining warriors. All of you die as well. Tu Xiong's eyes were filled with madness. Like a demon, he attacked and began to kill countless warriors in the arena. It was as if he wanted to kill everyone in the arena. Countless warriors in the arena either fled or hurriedly admitted defeat. Their eyes were filled with fear. After killing a few more warriors, Tu Xiong's eyes swept across the arena again. He saw Chu Fengyan, who was standing in his original spot with a calm face. He couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile on his face. Boy, it seems like you were scared. You don't even know how to escape. Come over here and kneel on the ground obediently. If you do, I can spare your life. Tu Xiong looked at Chu Fengyan, a wind-resisting realm martial artist. In his eyes was simply the existence of an ant. Tu Xiong had no interest in killing anyone who had not entered the divine power realm. Looking at Chu Fengyan, who was standing in his original spot with a calm face, he could not help but reveal a playful look. Tu Xiong pointed at Chu Fengyan and scolded loudly. His words were full of threats. He did not put Chu Fengyan in his eyes. Boy, I'm talking to you. Get over here quickly. Chu Fengyan looked at Tu Xiong and said with a smile, How about this? Kneel down and I will spare your life. How about that? What? Brat, are you crazy? Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Tu Xiong was stunned at first. Then he laughed. Spare my life? You, an ant in the wind-controlling realm? You're not even trash. You dare to participate in a Northern Sea Academy's assessment with such strength? You are really overestimating yourself. Tu Xiong's eyes changed. The smile disappeared and turned into killing intent. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Tu Xiong's body suddenly moved. His speed was so fast that it was shocking. In almost an instant, he was in front of Chu Fengyan. Spiritual energy gathered in his hand. Suddenly, he threw a punch at Chu Fengyan's head. You are overestimating yourself. Chu Fengyan calmly spat out these words. He waved his hand casually, and a gust of spiritual energy was thrown out. Tu Xiong's punch was completely dissolved. Not a trace of power was left. It hit Chu Fengyan's body without any power. Who is this person? There is actually someone who can resist Tu Xiong, a wind-resisting realm warrior. How is it possible? On the arena, other warriors looked at the scene in front of them. They could not believe their eyes. Tu Xiong, who was invincible and almost invincible, had his fist wind dissolved so easily. Moreover, the one who did all this was only a wind-resisting realm warrior. Even Qing Li, whose strength was comparable to a peak saint, could not resist Tu Xiong's punch. Now Chu Fengyan did it. How could people not be shocked? Oh, kid, you do have some skills. When Tu Xiong saw that his punch had been so easily neutralized, he could not help but reveal a look of surprise on his face. But soon, it turned into a sneer. So what if you have some skills? You will still die today. Blood demonic body. Tu Xiong's body swelled, and his aura was much stronger than before. What? This is Tu Xiong's full strength? What a terrifying aura. This aura is probably close to the life and death realm. Seeing Tu Xiong's soaring aura, the surrounding people shouted in disbelief. Kid, go to hell. Tu Xiong smiled malevolently and attacked again. He clenched his fist and threw a punch at Chu Fengyan. The power of this punch was probably several times stronger than the previous one. This was Tu Xiong's true strength. If it was a peak saint, that peak saint would have probably died from this punch. Break! In the face of such a terrifying punch, Chu Fengyan only spoke casually. Chu Fengyan spat out a word that contained some spiritual power. This terrifying punch was easily neutralized in front of Chu Fengyan. Tyrannical divine punch. Tu Xiong's attack became fiercer and fiercer. Suddenly, he mobilized all the spiritual power in his body and turned it into an extremely tyrannical punch. Thanks to Yang Shuai of Hongfu Chemicals PVC Auxiliary for the tip. Chapter 452. The power of Tu Xiong's punch shot through the air. Boundless spiritual energy immediately turned into an absolute overbearing aura. A powerful pressure enveloped Chu Fengyan and pressed down on him. Chu Fengyan stood in place and slowly raised his hand, pointing at the sky with his finger. With the point of his finger, the pressure was completely shattered. No matter how ferocious Tu Xiong's attack was, Chu Fengyan stood still and was not affected at all. What kind of cultivation technique is this person practicing? How can it be so strange? How can it dissolve my spiritual energy so easily? Tu Xiong frowned. His 2 consecutive punches were easily dissolved by Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan was only in the wind-controlling realm, so in his opinion, Chu Fengyan could dissolve his attack mostly because of his cultivation technique. Thinking of this, Tu Xiong suddenly withdrew his spiritual energy and integrated it into his muscles to increase his strength. So what if your cultivation technique is special? Since you can dissolve my spiritual energy, let's see if you can withstand my strength. Tu Xiong moved his feet and suddenly rushed toward Chu Fengyan. This time, Tu Xiong gave up on spiritual energy and planned to use his physical strength to deal with Chu Fengyan. With Tu Xiong's strength, even his physical strength was enough to contend with many saints. Moreover, he had just devoured countless saints' blood essence and cultivated the blood demonic body, which doubled his strength. In an instant, Tu Xiong rushed to Chu Fengyan and gave up all his spiritual energy to transform it into an extremely powerful physical strength. He rushed toward Chu Fengyan and punched directly. Good. Chu Fengyan's eyes flashed, and he sneered. He also wanted to test his physical strength and see what level it had reached. Chu Fengyan cultivated the battle dragon skill, so his physical body was much tougher than other warriors. Moreover, he had refined his body with thunder and condensed it with the sky crystal recently. Chu Fengyan wanted to test his physical strength, but he saw Tu Xiong give up his spiritual energy and fight with his physical strength. Chu Fengyan also withdrew all of his spiritual energy and punched out with his physical body. Crazy. This person is completely crazy. Using his physical strength to contend with Tu Xiong, this person is courting death. Many people saw this scene and couldn't help but shake their heads. A divine power realm martial artist, even with a fleshy body, could easily crush a wind-resisting realm martial artist too. A physical confrontation was a real confrontation of strength. There was no technique to speak of. With such a difference in cultivation level, the difference in strength could be seen at a glance. Boom! While the crowd was discussing, Tu Xiong's fists and Chu Fengyan's fists. Crack! The sound of bones breaking suddenly rang out. How is this possible? Everyone's eyes, and their mouths, their eyes were filled with disbelief. The sound of bones breaking was not Chu Fengyan's, but Tu Xiong's. Tu Xiong's right arm was bent at an extremely strange angle. It was fractured by the force of the punch. What terrifying power! Is this Guy's his? Was his Fim? His power was actually being completely suppressed. Chu Fengyan was a wind-controlling realm ant. How could he suppress Tu Xiong? Damn it! I don't believe this guy is invincible. Blood demonic body. Recover. Tu Xiong bellowed in anger. A bloody aura swirled around his body and instantly healed his broken right arm. This time, Tu Xiong's aura was even stronger than before. He was truly enraged and was attacking with all his might. Tu Xiong clenched his fists and punched at Chu Fengyan as he spoke. Let's see how many times you can recover. Break it for me. Chu Fengyan strode forward. He opened his 5 fingers and clawed at Tu Xiong. Crack! Once again, Tu Xiong's arms were broken by Chu Fengyan's grip. At the same time, Chu Fengyan's body had already rushed in front of Tu Xiong. He kicked Tu Xiong's chest. Boom! Tu Xiong's body was sent flying several hundred meters away. He only stopped when he hit the wall of the arena. Damn it! How can a wind-controlling realm brat have such terrifying strength? Tu Xiong stood up once again. The disdain in his eyes had disappeared without a trace. He could see that Chu Fengyan was not as simple as he looked. He was definitely a strong opponent. I plan to show my full strength after entering the Northern Sea Academy. Brat, you're enough to make me use my full strength. Tu Xiong looked at Chu Fengyan. His eyes were full of killing intent. I'll let you know how powerful my full strength is. As he spoke, Tu Xiong's body moved again. This time, his speed was several times faster than before. The power in Tu Xiong's body seemed to have broken a seal and was completely unleashed. Tu Xiong had been hiding most of his strength in order to suppress the life and death tribulation. Now that he met Chu Fengyan, he finally broke out. What? That wasn't Tu Xiong's full strength. I'm afraid that such a person is already the top figure in the Northern Sea Academy. How can we participate in the assessment with him? Seeing Tu Xiong's strength increase, countless people's eyes were filled with despair. Participating in the assessment with such a person was definitely the misfortune of misfortune. Only Chu Fengmian's expression was as calm as before. Full strength? So what if you use your full strength? Die for me. Chu Fengmian snorted. With Tu Xiong's strength, Chu Fengmian could kill him at any time unless he was several times stronger. Chu Fengmian did not want to kill him directly because he did not want to be too dazzling. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would have been able to defeat everyone on the arena in a single breath. Die for me. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and gathered the force of the battle dragon. Even though it had yet to take the form of a claw of the battle dragon, it still had yet to take the form of a claw. Although it had not yet formed the battle dragon claw, it was still an extremely terrifying force. Boom! 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 Tu Xiong, who had been swaggering around arrogantly a moment ago, was now pinned to the ground by this palm strike, unable to move at all. Thank you for Li Youyu's reward. Chapter 453. All of this had been completely reversed in an instant. Tu Xiong, who was invincible just a moment ago, was now suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Tu Xiong did not even have the ability to resist, as he was suppressed by Chu Fengmian. When the martialists in the arena saw this scene, they were completely speechless. They did not know what to say. Who would have thought that Tu Xiong would be defeated by Chu Fengmian? Tu Xiong was easily suppressed by Chu Fengmian without the ability to fight back. Tu Xiong was someone who could even kill a saint at the pinnacle. He was definitely going to be promoted to an inner disciple. Even Tu Xiong was in a daze. He could not believe it. He was actually defeated by Chu Fengmian like this. Don't kill me. I'm willing to admit defeat. Tu Xiong knelt in front of Chu Fengmian and begged for mercy. This scene simply stimulated the eyes of countless people present. No one would have thought that someone like Tu Xiong would be forced to kneel and beg for mercy. Hearing Tu Xiong's words, Chu Fengmian looked at him. His eyes flickered as if he was thinking about something. After a while, Chu Fengmian spoke. All right. Chu Fengmian was not a bloodthirsty person. He did not have much enmity with Tu Xiong. If Tu Xiong was willing to surrender, it was not impossible for Chu Fengmian to spare his life. The spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's palm slowly dissipated. The spiritual energy that had been suppressing Tu Xiong was also slowly dissipating. Blood piercing the rainbow. Almost at the moment when the spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's palm dissipated, Tu Xiong's face suddenly revealed a sinister smile. A stream of blood from his palm turned into a long spear. At such a close distance, it suddenly pierced toward Chu Fengmian's chest. Ha ha ha, boy. I didn't expect you to be so naive. Did you think that I would surrender? What a joke. You have strength, but you're just a fool. Tu Xiong suddenly stood up and laughed. His laughter was full of mockery. What's going on? It's over. This boy is dead. This sudden turn of events caught everyone off guard. No one had thought that Chu Fengmian would actually let go of Tu Xiong. This gave Tu Xiong the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. At such a close distance, even a life and death expert might not be able to block Tu Xiong's sneak attack. It's over. This brat is really stupid. He actually let go of Tu Xiong. Sigh, looks like Tu Xiong is going to win this time. Some of the martialists could not help but feel that it was a pity. Right now, Chu Fengmian was like a dark horse that had just emerged. But now he had been tricked by Tu Xiong and had fallen directly. However, this cannot be blamed on Tu Xiong. Between martial artists, there was always mutual deception. Furthermore, in this arena, they were all enemies. Even if he used underhanded means, there was nothing to blame. Tu Xiong sneered when he saw the spear about to pierce through Chu Fengmian's chest. Brat, after you die, remember to be a smart person in your next life. Really? Who said I would die? The sudden voice made Tu Xiong's face stiffen. The sneer on his face also seemed to have stopped. How is this possible? You're not dead? Tu Xiong stuttered. He couldn't even speak properly. In his expectation, Chu Fengmian would definitely be pierced through by the spear and fall. At such a close distance, even a life and death expert would not be able to block it. He suddenly turned his head and saw that the spear was caught in Chu Fengmian's hand. Chu Fengmian exerted strength in his palm, and the spear was directly shattered. You. How is this possible? Even a life and death expert would not be able to block this blood rainbow, not to mention at such a close distance. How could you block it? Tu Xiong suddenly said. He was extremely shocked and could not believe it. Chu Fengmian's face was calm. He did not answer Tu Xiong's question, but his eyes were filled with killing intent. Die. Now that you dare to sneak attack me, I have a reason to kill you. Chu Fengmian waved his hand and directly slapped at Tu Xiong. I admit defeat, Tu Xiong hurriedly shouted. He wanted to surrender and leave the stage. However, how could Chu Fengmian give Tu Xiong such a chance? Chu Fengmian had already given Tu Xiong a chance. Since he chose to sneak attack Chu Fengmian, his death was destined. Die, Peng. With a palm of spiritual power, Tu Xiong's body directly exploded, turning into a cloud of blood mist, and was directly collected by Chu Fengmian. A martial artist who had the strength to become an inner disciple died in the entrance exam. If this news spread out, it was enough to make people sigh. We admit defeat. The remaining martial artists looked at Chu Fengmian killing Tu Xiong as if they were looking at a monster. They could not even deal with Tu Xiong, let alone Chu Fengmian, who killed Tu Xiong. They all surrendered. On the stage, only Chu Fengmian was left. The Northern Mang token in Chu Fengmian's hand emitted a ray of light. This was the sign of passing the exam. Oh, you actually passed? Chu Fengmian walked down the stage. The Northern Mang Academy's disciple looked at Chu Fengmian with astonishment in his eyes. He did not know what happened on the stage, so he was extremely surprised to see Chu Fengmian walking down. In this group, Chu Fengmian's realm could only be considered below average. For martial artists who had not even reached the divine power realm, unless they were extremely lucky, it was very rare for them to pass the exam. I'm just lucky to have picked up a big bargain, Chu Fengmian calmly said. Chu Fengmian was too lazy to explain. After all, his current goal was to pass the exam first. Once Chu Fengmian entered Biming Academy and thoroughly understood its internal situation, he would be able to truly be unrestrained and stand out. What luck! Luck is also a part of one's strength. With such luck, who knows if you will encounter danger and turn it into safety? The Northern Mang Academy's disciple looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a smile, Let's go. The disciples who passed the exam are waiting in front. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded and followed the Northern Mang Academy's disciple into the palace. There was a small space inside, and there were rows and rows of chairs. With a glance, Chu Fengmian saw Han Yueli sitting at the side. Han Yueli sat at the side. Although her expression was calm, it made people feel a chill when they looked at her. She was like an ice goddess. Many martial artists in the surroundings only dared to secretly peek and did not dare to go up and talk. Chapter 454. After drawing out the profound, cold energy in his body, Han Yueli's aura became even more noble. Everyone who saw him could not help but be mesmerized. Chu Fengmian swept his gaze across the crowd and saw that many people were looking at Han Yueli with adoration. If anyone dared to approach Han Yueli at this time, they would probably become the target of public criticism. However, Chu Fengmian did not care and directly walked toward Han Yueli. This test was indeed not difficult for Han Yueli, and he easily passed it. Seeing Chu Fengmian walk over, Han Yueli's face finally revealed a slight smile. It took quite a long time. Seeing Chu Fengmian walk over, Han Yueli's frosty face finally revealed a slight smile. Today, Han Yueli would only reveal such an attitude in front of Chu Fengmian. It took some time. Chu Fengmian smiled and sat beside Han Yueli. He naturally knew that this test was naturally not difficult for Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli. If the two of them wanted to, they could instantly kill everyone on the stage. They delayed for some time so that they would not be so dazzling. The conversation between the two of them attracted the attention of many people in the palace, especially many people who saw Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli talking so happily. They looked at Chu Fengmian with eyes that could not wait to kill Chu Fengyan. Brother Yan, it seems that it will not be easy for you to pursue this girl. This girl's appearance clearly shows that her heart already belongs to someone. On the other side of the palace, a few cultivators were sitting together. They were led by the young master of the Yin family, Yin Gu, whom Chu Fengyan had met in the main hall. They had already vaguely formed a small faction. Many cultivators attached themselves to Yin Gu and tried their best to curry favor with him. In the Northern Mang Academy, there were also countless small factions. Everyone was a new disciple and would gather together to enjoy the shade of a large tree. Among this batch of newcomers, the most dazzling one was Yin Gu. Naturally, many people regarded him as their leader. However, among this group of people, there was a young man sitting next to Yin Gu. He seemed to be someone who was on the same level as Yin Gu. He was not trying to curry favor with Yin Gu. Brother Mai, you don't have to worry. None of the women that Yin Gu, have taken a fancy to can escape from my grasp. Yin Gu glanced at Han Yueli, his eyes filled with adoration. He made up his mind to obtain Han Yueli. With Brother Yan's help, I naturally believe that only Brother Yan is worthy of such a woman. The young man beside him said with a smile. However, that woman's strength is not weak. It won't be that easy to obtain her. His position was on the same level as Yin Gu. He was also a prominent figure among this batch of newcomers. Mai Zhan came from one of the great clans of the North region, the Mai clan. His strength was only below Yin Gu's, and he was already close to the life and death realm. So what? Hearing Mai Zhan's words, Yin Gu coldly snorted. Wait until I enter the Northern Mang Academy and obtain its resources. I will soar to the heavens and become an invincible figure. At that time, I don't believe that any woman will be able to reject my pursuit. Only I am worthy of such a woman. Yin Gu looked at Han Yueli with adoration. From the first time he saw her, he had already made up his mind to obtain Han Yueli. Yin Gu glanced at Han Yueli and then at Chu Fengyan. His eyes were filled with disdain. Moreover, the person beside her is just a trash of the wind resistance realm. Although he was lucky enough to enter the Northern Mang Academy, he's still just an outer disciple. Wait until he enters the Northern Mang Academy. Their status will change drastically. I don't even need to do anything. This relationship will naturally be broken. Yes, any woman who can be valued by Brother Yan is her fortune. Yes, with Brother Yan's future achievements, you can find any woman you want. Don't think that she's an ice goddess now. As long as Brother Yan hooks his finger, she will be delivered to him. The group of martial artists sitting beside Yin Gu chimed in one after another. Yin Gu couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. Although the group of people were whispering, it was impossible to hide from Chu Fengyan's ears. Hearing the discussion, Chu Fengyan couldn't help but reveal a cold smile. Since Yin Gu dared to have designs on Chu Fengyan's woman, Chu Fengyan had already put him on the death list. When Chu Fengyan found an opportunity in the Northern Mang Academy, he would definitely kill him. The palace was soon filled with people. At a glance, there were more than 10,000 people. Although there were a lot of people, compared to the 1 million people in the main hall, only 1% of them were able to pass the test. The rest of the people either died or failed. After waiting for 4 to 6 hours, the test was over. Everyone was present. Those who remained weren't weak. At the very least, they had the strength of level 5 divine power realm and above. A wind-resisting realm martial artist like Chu Fengyan was like a crane in a flock of chickens in the palace. He was extremely eye-catching. Many people looked at Chu Fengyan with disdain. After all, a wind-resisting realm martial artist like him must have been extremely lucky to pass the test. He might even have gotten in through the back door, through connections. Naturally, they were extremely disdainful of him. Everyone has passed the test. You are all the outer disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. Suddenly, a group of martial artists walked in from the outside. These people were the disciples of the Northern Mang Academy. The leader of the group was the host of the test, Elder Su Ling. Everyone present hurriedly stood up. Even though the people who passed the test were all extremely prideful geniuses, none of them dared to be disrespectful in front of Elder Su Ling. These are your clothes, identity cards, and a book of the Northern Mang Academy. It records the rules of our Northern Mang Academy. When you return, You must familiarize yourself with it so that you don't violate the rules of the Northern Mang Academy. Elder Su Ling said coldly. The surrounding disciples of the Northern Mang Academy began to distribute the clothes and identity cards. Chu Fengyan took the clothes and refined it with a drop of blood. The clothes automatically wore on Chu Fengyan's body. The clothes were also a top-grade profound, grade spiritual artifact. Although the grade wasn't high, it could still withstand some minor injuries. Not to mention that the Northern Mang Academy would distribute tens of thousands of them at the same time. It would also consume a huge amount of wealth. Only the Northern Mang Academy had such wealth and was so overbearing. Today's 5th update, there's one more. Please reward me. Chapter 455. In addition to the Biming Academy's uniform, there were 2 other items, an identity token and the Biming ceremony. The Biming Academy's identity token was very similar to the Wuxing Academy's. First, it could prove one's identity. Second, it could record merit points. The Biming Academy also had merit points. As long as one completed the missions, one could exchange them for precious treasures. Many of the treasures in the Biming Academy could not be obtained outside. As long as one had enough merit points, they could be exchanged for. Chu Fengyan's first drop of blood appeared on the identity token. Chu Fengyan's name and a 0 appeared. This 0 represented Chu Fengyan's current merit points. Warriors like Chu Fengyan, who had just arrived at the Biming Academy, did not have any merit points. If they wanted to obtain merit points to exchange for treasures, they had to accept missions and work for the Biming Academy. As for the Biming ceremony, it was a book. Chu Fengyan opened it and saw countless records of the Biming Academy's history, rules, and the current distribution of forces in the northern region. Chu Fengyan did not pay much attention to the history and rules of the Biming Academy. He just skimmed through it and remembered most of it. What he cared about the most was the records of the northern region's forces and the current distribution of forces in the 9 regions. Although it was written very generally, it was still a treasure to Chu Fengyan. He had been reborn for 10,000 years. Chu Fengyan did not know anything about the changes that had happened in the past 10,000 years. Behemoths like the Biming Academy had risen in the past 10,000 years. 10,000 years was enough for the forces in the 9 regions to be reshuffled. Looking at the records of the Biming ceremony, Chu Fengyan found many unfamiliar names. Of course, Chu Fengyan was very familiar with many of the names. Tianjin Sect, Desolate Ancient Sect, Sage Monarch Sect, Dubby Hall, 9 Demon City, Ancient Moon Valley, Medicine King Valley. The names of the 7 major sects were also listed. They were still the top forces in the 9 regions. Just you wait. Soon, I will completely remove the 7 major sects from the 9 regions. Chu Fengyan's eyes were filled with killing intent. This killing intent was different from the past. It was the extreme hatred in Chu Fengyan's heart. What happened? Han Weili also noticed the change in Chu Fengyan. She had never encountered such a frightening killing intent. Chu Fengyan, who had always been extremely indifferent, actually had such a frightening killing intent. She hurriedly patted Chu Fengyan awake, and only then did Chu Fengyan withdraw his killing intent. Chu Feng woke up and broke out in a cold sweat. He almost forgot that he was in the North Sea Academy, under the watchful eyes of so many people. If Chu Fengyan behaved too strangely, it was very likely that he would be arrested for interrogation. It's nothing. I just thought of something from the past. Chu Fengyan glanced at Han Weili gratefully. If Han Weili hadn't reminded Chu Fengyan would have been blinded by hatred. As Chu Fengyan's strength increased, the hatred in his heart did not disappear. Instead, it became more and more intense. Normally, Chu Fengyan wasn't affected by it, but when he saw the name of the 7 great sects, the killing intent in his heart surged. No, my current strength is still very weak compared to the 7 great sects. I can only endure. When my strength is enough to contend against the 7 great sects, the 7 great sects will be removed from the 9 regions. Chu Fengyan secretly thought in his heart and adjusted his emotions. All right, everyone, you have all passed the test and are now disciples of our North Sea Academy. Once you enter our North Sea Academy, you can't leave for the rest of your life. You must be proud of our academy. Whoever dares to leave will die. Elder Su Ling said in a cold voice. The moment he spoke, an extremely frightening killing intent was contained in his words. Those who heard it couldn't help but shudder. The atmosphere in the palace instantly froze to the freezing point. Elder Su Ling said with a smile, However, since you have all become disciples of our North Sea Academy, we will naturally nurture you well. Don't worry, as long as you don't betray the Academy will not restrict your freedom. These words broke the ice-cold stalemate. Chu Fengmian naturally understood that this was a form of intimidation. He was already used to it and looked at it indifferently. Now, everyone listen to my orders. Leave the palace. Outside, the Ark has already been prepared. Everyone will be sent to the real location of our North Sea Academy. After Elder Su Ling said that, he turned around and left. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli followed the crowd outside and saw a total of 10 enormous arcs. These arcs were countless times bigger than the ones of the Wuxing Academy. Among them, there were countless restrictions and arrays engraved on the arcs, which were much more mysterious. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli stepped onto one of the arcs. This arc directly broke through the space and entered the space tunnel. Soon, a mountain range appeared in front of them. In this mountain range, there were many tall buildings and palaces. It was the size of countless countries. Everything in this mountain range belonged to the North Sea Academy. This Northern Mang Academy is actually in an independent space. Chu Fengmian looked at the scene in front of him and was slightly surprised. Right now, the location of the Beimang Academy was actually not in the Beimang city, but in another space. To be able to open up such a large space and use it as the location of the North Sea Academy, the founder of the North Sea Academy was much more powerful than Chu Fengmian had imagined. To be able to do this, only the peak experts of the 9 regions could do it. Not only Chu Fengmian, but many people on the Ark were even more shocked. They had never thought that there would be someone who could open up such a huge space in the void and establish a sect. Elder Su Ling looked at everyone's envious and shocked expressions and said with pride on his face, The encampment of our Beimang Academy is in this void. It was created by our founding ancestor with a supreme ability. You guys can cultivate in it, and it's incomparably safe. You don't have to worry about any external threats. Cultivating in the North Sea Academy was indeed incomparably safe. After all, it was an independent space. Chu Fengmian felt that even life and death experts couldn't barge into this space. Today's 6th update. Another update, requesting everyone's support. Chapter 456. In the space where the Northern Mang Academy was located, the spiritual energy was extremely dense. Chu Fengmian stretched out his hand and slightly activated his spiritual energy. With a grab, a pure and colorless elixir appeared in his hand. The effect of this elixir was not inferior to a 9-cauldron elixir. This was just the elixir that Chu Fengmian condensed by casually grabbing the surrounding spiritual energy. He could condense it into an elixir by just grabbing a handful of spiritual energy. It could be seen how dense the spiritual energy in this space was. There should be a spiritual spring in this space. Otherwise, it's impossible to have such dense spiritual energy. This level of spiritual qi could not have been formed naturally. After all, this space was actually created by a supreme almighty. This spiritual energy was formed after birth. Chu Fengmian's eyes moved. He released his spiritual consciousness and directly searched this space. In the center of countless mountains, there were countless flowing lights that were shining. These flowing lights were formed by the spiritual energy that was extremely dense. The dense spiritual energy in this space was emitted from this place. The spiritual spring here is really huge. It's hard to find in the 9 regions. It was extracted from the 9 regions and moved into this space by someone with a supreme ability. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but exclaim, The great work of the founder of the Northern Mang Academy. He directly opened up an independent space and formed such a cultivation holy land. This kind of method was really shocking. It was no wonder that the Northern Mang Academy could rise crazily from 10,000 years. Just this method alone was extremely shocking. If I can enter this spiritual spring and wantonly devour spiritual energy, I'm afraid I'll reach the heavens in a single step and directly enter the divine power realm, or even the peak of the divine power realm. Chu Fumian thought inwardly, but he also shook his head. This spiritual spring was obviously guarded by countless experts of the Northern Mang Academy. Just the countless restrictions and arrays that were placed on it were extremely difficult to deal with. The difficulty for Chu Fumian to sneak in was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, not to mention that he might be discovered and directly put in danger. However, this spiritual spring belonged to the Baiming Academy. Now that Chu Fumian had joined the Baiming Academy, it wasn't impossible to use it. From Tuoba Ding, Chu Fumian knew that there were countless caves near the spirit spring of the Northern Sea Academy. These caves absorbed the spirit chi of the spirit spring and could be used for cultivation. Although it wasn't as good as directly entering the spirit spring, it was enough for Chu Fumian. It could help Chu Fumian break through and step into the divine force realm. However, even if he wanted to use the cave to cultivate, it would not be that simple. He would have to use merit points to exchange for it. In the Northern Mang Academy, although there were countless cultivation resources, they had to be exchanged with merit points. Like Chu Fengmian, who had just entered the Northern Mang Academy, he could only accumulate merit points and use them to exchange for various things. We're here. While Chu Fengmian was deep in thought, the speed of the arc gradually slowed down. Finally, it came to a stop in an incomparably huge plaza within the Northern Mang Academy. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli, along with the others, walked down from the arc and came to the plaza. Elder Su Ling stood on a tall platform in the plaza. He swept his gaze across the crowd and suddenly opened his mouth. Now that all of you have passed the assessment, you should be the outer disciples of our Northern Sea Academy. However, right now, there's an opportunity to reach the heavens in a single bound before all of you. Elder Su Ling swept his gaze across the crowd and coldly opened his mouth. In a moment, some elders of our Northern Sea Academy will come to select disciples. If any of you are chosen by that elder as a disciple, you will reach the heavens in a single bound and directly become an inner disciple. There's no need for you to advance bit by bit. All of you must display all of your strength to be chosen by the elders. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for all of you. Do you understand? Yes. Below, countless people shouted in unison. Many people began to circulate their spiritual energy. The entire plaza was filled with spiritual energy that soared to the heavens. This was also one of the fixed events of the Northern Sea Academy's annual assessment. Some elders would come to select disciples. Many disciples with extremely high aptitudes were immediately selected. They didn't need to be outer disciples and could step into the inner disciples with a bright future. The majority of the warriors directly circulated the strongest energy in their bodies in order to be chosen by that elder as a disciple. Chu Fengmian and Han Yueli also circulated a portion of their spiritual energy and erupted it. They circulated less than 20% of their spiritual energy. Han Yueli displayed a strength close to the life and death realm. Right now, she was extremely dazzling in the crowd. As for Chu Fengmian, he only displayed a strength around the 5th layer of the divine power realm. With his realm, the strength he displayed was already extremely shocking. After all, his strength had surpassed the 6th layer of the divine power realm. If Chu Fengmian also displayed a strength close to the life and death realm, he wouldn't be accepted as a disciple by that elder. Instead, he would be captured by the experts of the Northern Sea Academy as a spy. Chu Fengmian had many fortuitous encounters. He didn't want to take this risk. In the sky above the plaza, there were several figures conversing with each other. The strength of these people wasn't below that of Elder Su Ling. They were the elders of the Northern Sea Academy, real big shots. If placed outside, they were super experts who could casually destroy country. Their spiritual awareness swept through the crowd below. Chu Fengmian was somewhat nervous. He tried his best to conceal his various fortuitous encounters so as to avoid being discovered. Even if a peak life and death realm expert saw Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounters, they would want to snatch them. Chu Fengmian didn't want to invite trouble for himself. An ordinary man's wealth was his own ruin. With the status of the elders of the Northern Sea Academy, they wouldn't do something like snatching a disciple's fortuitous encounters. However, their status, face, and dignity were nothing in front of a great fortune. If all of Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounters were revealed, Chu Fengmian believed that these elders would kill Chu Fengmian at all costs and snatch his fortuitous encounters. There are a few pretty good fellows in this batch of newcomers. This Yan Gu and Mu Yezhan are indeed famous geniuses in the northern region. Their current strength has already reached the level of inner disciples. An elder of the Northern Mang Academy swept his gaze down from the sky as he slowly opened his mouth and spoke. Thank you very much for Li Youyu's reward. Chapter 457. In the air, countless elders of the North Mang Academy scanned the crowd below with their spiritual power, preparing to find a few geniuses with high aptitudes to be nurtured as disciples. For life and death experts like them, the matter of accepting a disciple was extremely important. If the disciple they taught wasn't strong enough, the master's reputation would be ruined. Naturally, no one would rashly choose to accept a disciple. So what if he's a little famous genius? The geniuses outside are only the tallest among the shortest. In the academy, you won't even be ranked. Another elder said. His tone was full of disdain. Their families are pretty good. They've been nurtured since young. If they see some talented geniuses, they'll quickly surpass them with some nurturing. That's natural. Our North Mang Academy's resources are countless times more abundant than the outside. Another elder chimed in. Nowadays, they weren't just selecting disciples based on strength. After all, many of the disciples participating in the North Mang Academy's exam came from different backgrounds. If one relied on his family's strength while the other relied on his own cultivation, the other would have a higher cultivation base. Naturally, the second person's aptitude was more outstanding. Of course, strength was also an extremely important factor. An elder looked at Chu Fengmian's direction, his eyes shining brightly. This kid is somewhat interesting. To be able to pass the exam with wind-controlling realm cultivation base. To be able to cross 6 realms, this kind of aptitude is pretty good. Oh, but it's a pity that this kid's strength is still too weak. This kind of cultivation base is still too low. An elder also noticed Chu Fengmian's presence. He swept his gaze over him and shook his head. If he's already in Divine Force realm, we can nurture him more. But wind-controlling realm, such a person might not even be able to break through Divine Force realm. Chu Fengmian was naturally aware of the two elders' gazes. Seeing that the two didn't find anything unusual, Chu Fengmian finally let out a sigh of relief. The strength of these elders far surpassed him. He was still far from being able to contend against these high-level life and death experts. Chu Fengmian didn't want others to discover the abnormality in his body. Therefore, he concealed most of his strength. Hold on, who is this person? An elder's eyes suddenly widened as he looked at Han Yueli, who was sitting beside Chu Fengmian on the platform. What a terrifying chill. My spiritual sense can't move freely around her. This kind of chill is simply terrifying. Really? There's actually such a person among this batch of rookies? The other elders also probed with their spiritual senses. When they sensed the abnormality, they were shocked to the extreme. They were all high-level life and death experts, but they couldn't see through Han Yueli's concealment. The coldness around Han Yueli was enough to block their spiritual senses. What a chill. To think that he's able to affect our spiritual senses at the Divine Force realm. Could it be that this person has an innate divine physique? An elder blurted out. Only the power of the innate divine body could surpass realms and render them helpless and unable to see through it. Innate divine body. This sentence was like a clap of thunder that resounded among the countless elders. Spiritual senses looked at Han Yueli one after another. However, the moment they reached Han Yueli's side, they were all frozen and shattered. All they could see was an extremely cold iceberg. Such an innate divine physique. I must take her as my disciple. That's right. Yi Tianjun is now the king of the North Sea Academy. His master status has also risen. Now, there's another innate divine physique. I must take her as my disciple. The elders all had the intention of taking him in as a disciple. With a little training, the innate divine physique would become a super expert whose name would shake the entire North region. I want this girl. A soft shout suddenly sounded. It was an extremely clear female voice. Suddenly, an icy blue figure fell from the void. This icy blue figure was an extremely beautiful girl. Her face was as cold as frost, which made people feel a chill when they saw her. So, it's Elder Bingley. Seeing the woman appear, Elder Su Ling's face was filled with respect. This girl's strength far surpassed Elder Su Ling's. Chu Fengmian couldn't see through her strength. However, she was at least close to the 8th or 9th level of life and death realm. She might even be at the peak of life and death realm. Among the countless elders of the North Sea Academy, she was an important figure with an extremely high status. Those elders who wanted to compete for Han Yueli all retreated when they saw Elder Bingley. They didn't dare to compete. Profound cold physique. Your physique is very similar to mine. Come with me. Elder Bingley glanced at Han Yueli, then waved her hand and brought Han Yueli away. Yes, Han Yueli respectfully replied and left with Elder Bingley. Han Yueli was also clear that this was a chance for him to reach the heavens in a single bound. Thus, he left with Elder Bingley. Chu Fengmian nodded his head in relief, as he had such a huge backer when he first entered the North Sea Academy. Han Yueli's departure stimulated the countless warriors present. The countless warriors present pushed their strength to the limit, no longer hiding anything. They all wanted to be like Han Yueli and be taken away by an elder. That way, they would be able to reach the heavens. You come with me. Another elder came down and pointed at Yengu. He then took Yengu away. The remaining one, Mu Yezhan, was also taken away by an elder. Among this batch of newcomers, the stronger ones were all taken away. This was within Chu Fengmian's expectations. In the end, the elders left one after another. Some elders who didn't get a disciple weren't discouraged. After all, it was better to go without than to have something substandard. Chu Fengmian hid most of his talents and wasn't taken away by others. It wasn't a good thing for Chu Fengmian to suddenly become a disciple. He had too many secrets. If he became a disciple, he might be discovered. Now that he was alone, it was much more convenient. Moreover, Chu Fengmian didn't need a teacher. He had countless experiences from his previous life. He didn't need any cultivation technique or sword technique. He knew it all by himself. Chu Fengmian lacked strength now. He didn't lack any cultivation technique or sword technique. As long as he was strong enough, he could use anything. Thank you for your support. Thank you, guys, Chi, and Burning Dream for your tips. Chapter 458. The disciple recruitment ceremony had come to an end. The warriors who weren't chosen by the elders had lost the opportunity to reach the heavens in a single bound. This made many warriors feel somewhat dejected. Don't be discouraged if you weren't chosen by the elders. As long as you cultivate peacefully in the academy, you will have a chance to become an inner disciple in the future. Even becoming a seed disciple is possible. Elder Su Ling looked at the remaining people and said with a smile, "Now, Ouyang Chun is one of the seed disciples. Even if he was promoted step by step from an outer disciple to a seed disciple and even entered the sky ranking, you all still have a chance." Elder Su Ling's words caused many of the cultivators below to reveal some fighting spirit in their eyes. That's right. I have also heard of Brother Ouyang's story. He was promoted step by step from an outer disciple and even defeated many elders' disciples to become a seed disciple. Yes, we can also do it. We can also compete with the elders' disciples. A few warriors spoke one after another. Each of them regained their confidence. However, when Chu Fengmian heard this story, he could only shake his head. Ouyang Chen's story was indeed good in the Northern Mang Academy. However, his rise was not something that could be achieved by 1 in 100,000 people. After all, the elders' disciples were people with high aptitudes. With more resources, the gap between them would only grow bigger. Elder Su Ling's words were just a way for everyone to regain their confidence. All right, now go to the outer sect and stay. I have already prepared cave residences for you. In a few days, the mission will be issued. At that time, you will have to work for the academy. Elder Su Ling said and left. The remaining few Northern Mang Academy disciples led the remaining people to a mountain range. The nearby mountains were the outer sect disciples' area. There were many cave residences in the middle of the mountain range. The outer sect disciples of the Northern Mang Academy still occupied the majority, but the area they occupied was not much. For example, the area occupied by an inner sect disciple was 100 times larger than that of an outer sect disciple. The area occupied by a seed disciple was 10,000 times larger than that of an outer sect disciple. In the Northern Mang Academy, all the status and resources were determined by one's strength. The larger the area he occupied, the more spirit energy he could absorb, and the faster his cultivation speed would be. These are all ownerless cave dwellings. You can distribute them however you like. Each person is only allowed to occupy one cave dwelling. Rest for a few days and familiarize yourself with the rules of the Northern Sea Academy. After 10 days, head to the plaza and wait for your assignments. The outer disciples of the Northern Mang Academy couldn't be like the inner disciples who only needed to cultivate every day. If they also needed to take on missions, they would have a fixed mission every year. Only after completing these quests would he be able to find the time to cultivate. Although completing quests would give him certain benefits, it was far from comparable to cultivating bitterly. If he did not enter the inner sect, he would not even be able to cultivate in peace. The Northern Mang Academy's disciple left after he finished speaking, leaving Chu Fengmian's group standing in the mountain range and looking at the countless caves around them. We went through untold hardships to join the Northern Mang Academy, yet we still have to listen to orders and complete missions. We're just like slaves. Many people started to complain when they saw the disciple leave. They were all disciples of big clans. Now that they had come to the Northern Sea Academy, they were being controlled instead. They were all extremely dissatisfied. Don't talk so much nonsense. Let's concentrate on cultivating and become inner disciples as soon as possible. Only then can we get rid of these heavy missions. These caves are all different in size. Let's quickly pick a good cave dwelling. After a warrior finished speaking, he directly left to pick a cave dwelling. Although these caves were all in the same mountain range, each of them was different in size and height. Some of the caves occupied the mountain peaks with high terrains and rich spirit energy. Some of the cave dwellings were located in low-lying corners where the spirit chi was thin. There was quite a big difference between each cave dwelling. This should be the best cave dwelling in this mountain range. Chu Fengmian's spiritual sense swept around, and the surrounding caves were all in his sight. Chu Fengmian's figure moved and directly arrived at a cave dwelling halfway up the mountain. Although this cave dwelling was not at the highest point, the terrains were still high and incomparably huge. It was 4 to 5 times bigger than an ordinary cave dwelling. It was the best cave dwelling in this mountain range. Cultivating in this cave dwelling was 4 to 5 times faster than an ordinary cave dwelling. I've just entered, so this is the only way. Feeling the surrounding spirit energy, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Such a cave dwelling was indeed far from satisfying Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian knew that this mountain range was already far from the spirit spring. The few mountains near the spirit spring were the areas of seed disciples and even core disciples. It was far from what Chu Fengmian could reach. Now he could only move around in this mountain range and could only find the best cave dwelling in this mountain range. After Chu Fengmian finished speaking, he immediately began to arrange all kinds of things in the cave dwelling. Naturally, he had to arrange some formations and restrictions in order to cultivate in this cave dwelling. Oh, there's actually someone occupying this cave. Just when Chu Fengmian was arranging, a voice suddenly came from outside the cave dwelling. It sounded like 2 people who came together, and their goal was also Chu Fengmian's cave dwelling. Chu Fengmian's cave dwelling was the best one in the entire mountain range. Naturally, there would be many people who also had their eyes on this cave dwelling. It's actually just a kid in the wind resistance realm. One of the middle-aged men looked at Chu Fengmian and snorted in disdain. Such a trash dares to occupy the best cave dwelling? He really doesn't know what death is. Kid, get out quickly. He suddenly roared and directly punched out, breaking the restrictions that Chu Fengmian had just arranged halfway. Hearing the movement, Chu Fengmian turned his head and saw two middle-aged men. Chu Fengmian had some impression of these two people. The one who spoke just now was called Niu Feng. He was considered an expert among this batch of newcomers. His strength was close to the 9th level of the divine power realm. However, his aptitude was not high, so he was not valued by the elders. The other person was Ma Yun. His strength was extremely close to Niu Feng. The strength of these two people was originally ranked at the peak of this batch of newcomers. Now, they actually joined hands. Perhaps no one in this batch of newcomers could defeat them. Chapter 459. Now, the two of them had teamed up to snatch the cave abode. However, this cave abode was 4 to 5 times bigger than an ordinary cave abode. The spiritual chi was also extremely dense. Even if it was occupied by 2 people, the spiritual chi was much more than an ordinary cave abode. If the two of them teamed up, no one in this batch of newcomers would dare to contend with them. However, Chu Fengmian was an exception. Chu Fengmian turned his head and spoke with an extremely calm expression. What can I do for you two? Kid, you don't have to play dumb. Get out of this cave abode quickly. This cave abode is not for trash like you. Niu Feng looked at Chu Fengmian and mocked him. How can a mere wind controlling realm and occupy such a cave abode? I think the cave abode at the foot of the mountain is most suitable for you. The cave abode at the foot of the mountain was the one with the thinnest spiritual chi and the narrowest one. This cave abode is first come, first served. There is no such thing as being worthy or not. Chu Fengmian spoke indifferently. Chu Fengmian naturally knew what the two of them were thinking. Now that Chu Fengmian had come to the Northern Mang Academy, he did not want to display too much of his strength and was too lazy to fight with the two of them. Otherwise, based on what the two of them had said just now, the two of them would already be dead. However, the two of them did not take Chu Fengmian's advice to heart. Instead, they revealed a mocking expression on their faces. First come, first served? Kid, do you think a trash like you is qualified to occupy this cave abode? When Niu Feng heard Chu Fengmian's words, he could not help but laugh out loud, as if he was mocking him. Not only Niu Feng, but many surrounding warriors also laughed out loud. This cave abode was the best cave abode in the mountain range. Niu Feng and Ma Yun were not the only ones who wanted to spy on it. There were also many people who gathered and observed from the side. Everyone wanted to snatch the best cave abode. In the Northern Mang Academy, strength was respected. The most important thing was strength, and strength was the reason. There was no such thing as first come, first served. If one wanted to obtain it, he could directly snatch it away. Although this cave abode was not allowed to be snatched according to the sect rules, in reality, no one would blame him if he snatched it away. Niu Feng's laughter was mocking Chu Fengmian for believing in sect rules. You're just a piece of trash in the wind controlling realm. You'd better obediently go to the farthest corner of the cave to cultivate. Hurry up and get lost. If you don't get lost, I'll directly grab you out. Don't think it's shameful when the time comes. Niu Feng laughed heartily as he spoke. It was clear that he did not take Chu Fengmian seriously at all. Chu Fengmian, a martial artist in the wind-resisting realm, could pass the assessment, which naturally attracted his attention. But in Niu Feng's view, Chu Fengmian was at most a guy with good luck. He didn't even care about those who took advantage of the situation to pass the test. Chu Fengmian looked at Niu Feng and shook his head. You're not strong, but you talk big. Chu Fengmian didn't want to act rashly and reveal his strength, but it didn't mean that he would endure. If he endured too much, then Chu Fengmian wouldn't be Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was an extremely arrogant person. He had already given him face once, so there was no way he would give him a second time. Really? Not strong enough? Even if my strength isn't strong, it's more than enough to deal with you. Niu Feng's face flushed with anger when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. Since you don't want to scram, I'll make you scram. Get out here. Cripple his cultivation and throw him out. After all, this is the Beimang Academy. It's not good to kill people here. Ma Yun, who was at the side, also spoke. His words were full of threats. Brat, if you don't want to be a cripple, get out here quickly. What's the point of wasting time talking to this piece of trash? Let's just capture him. Niufeng's face showed some impatience. Suddenly, he attacked. Spiritual energy erupted from his body and turned into a spiritual energy palm, grabbing towards the cave dwelling. Come out. When Niufeng made his move, a giant hand formed from spiritual energy instantly and grabbed at Chu Fengyan. The strength of the spiritual energy palm sealed the space and made Chu Fengyan unable to move. It was going to take Chu Fengyan away. This brat is really courting death. He actually dared to compete with Niufeng and Ma Yun. I'm such a reckless guy. Just teach him a lesson. Niufeng is one of the best in this batch of newcomers. He actually dares to compete with him. Let's wait here. That brat will be thrown out soon. Some of the martial artists looked at Chu Fengyan with mocking expressions. In their opinion, a wind-resisting realm martial artist dared to occupy the best cave dwelling. It was also an act of not knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. It was only right to teach him a lesson. Although Niufeng's spiritual energy palm wasn't at full strength, it was still difficult for a level 9 divine power realm martial artist to resist. Using it to deal with Chu Fengyan, who was in the wind-resisting realm, was equivalent to a sure kill move. Courting death. Just as the spiritual energy palm was about to reach Chu Fengyan suddenly moved. Chu Fengyan raised his right hand slowly. A surge of spiritual energy condensed on his fist, and he suddenly punched out. This punch directly smashed onto the spiritual energy palm that Niufeng had condensed. Instantly, countless cracks appeared on the spiritual energy palm. Then, it shattered layer by layer. The backlash caused Niufeng to take a few steps back before he could stabilize his body. Are you guys trying to snatch my cave dwelling? You dare to disturb me? Very well. If I don't teach you a lesson today, do you really think that Chu Fengyan, can be bullied by others? Chu Fengyan snorted coldly. After forcing Niufeng to retreat, he suddenly struck out with his palm. This palm strike was suddenly struck out silently. No one saw it clearly, but it had already turned into a palm print and blasted towards Niufeng. Since Niufeng was here, Chu Fengyan would make an example out of him. This would also make these people not dare to disturb Chu Fengyan again. How is this possible? But how could a trash in the wind controlling realm break my spiritual power? Niufeng slowly stood up and let out a roar filled with shock. When he saw Chu Fengyan's palm strike coming towards him, his body suddenly exploded. His muscles bulged and the spiritual energy in his body was stimulated. He erupted with all his strength. Raging fire, Vajra body. Suddenly, countless golden flames burned on Niufeng's body. This flame contained a faint Buddha intent. It was the real Buddha fire. With the support of the spiritual energy, Niufeng directly turned into a real raging fire Vajra. Chapter 460. The Buddhist cultivators came from a mysterious sect in the ancient times. They had long disappeared. Powerful Buddhist cultivators could transform into Buddhas. Niufeng had transformed into one of the ancient Buddhist cultivators, the Raging Inferno Guardian. I've heard that Niufeng had a fortuitous encounter. I didn't expect him to be a long-lost Buddhist cultivator. It's said that once the Raging Inferno Guardian is cultivated, one will be invulnerable to weapons. The flames on his body will be able to burn everything. It's far more powerful than ordinary flames. Among the warriors in the same realm, he's almost invincible. With such a fortuitous encounter, he's born to be extraordinary. Countless onlookers looked at Niufeng with fear in their eyes. After all, there were countless conflicts between outer sect disciples like them, and they had to compete for many resources. If such a powerful figure were to be placed in the outer sect, he would be a tyrant. Humph, this kid is finished today. He's offended Niufeng. He won't be able to survive in the Northern Sea Academy. Ma Yun looked at Chu Fengyan with a cold smile on his face. Niufeng was a vengeful person. Now that Chu Fengyan had offended Niufeng, he wouldn't be able to survive in the Northern Sea Academy in the future. Kid, it's your honor to be defeated by my Raging Inferno Guardian. I originally planned to hide some of the raging Inferno Guardian. Now that you've exposed it, you'll have to pay the price. Niufeng looked at Chu Fengyan and sized him up. His eyes were full of greed. Your bloodline is very special. I can sense a bit of the Dragon Clan's aura in your power. Your bloodline should have the bloodline of the real dragon. That's why you have such power. I'll extract your bloodline. Otherwise, you'll bury the real dragon bloodline. As Niufeng spoke, his body moved. He took a big step forward. The rocks under his feet were burned, leaving behind a fiery footprint. Like a real raging Inferno Guardian, he suddenly strode toward Chu Fengyan. His every move was no different for a raging Inferno Guardian. Raging Inferno Guardian? In the ancient Buddhism, it can only be regarded as a minor cultivation method. How dare you be arrogant in front of me? Chu Fengyan looked at Niufeng with disdain and coldly snorted. At this moment, Chu Fengyan made his move. The battle dragon bloodline in his body was slightly activated, causing an aura to burst out from his body. Chu Fengyan had suppressed the battle dragon bloodline by more than half. It looked like an ordinary true dragon bloodline. Endless dragon power condensed in Chu Fengyan's palm, turning his right hand into a dragon claw, emitting a torrential spiritual power. What raging fire diamond body? Break for me. In front of a true dragon, the raging Inferno Vajra is nothing. Chu Fengyan laughed out loud and suddenly clawed at him. The claw landed directly on Niufeng's body. Niufeng smiled proudly when he saw Chu Fengyan making a move. Brat, you're really stupid. My raging Inferno Vajra has Buddha fire on its body. If you dare to grab it, be careful not to get yourself into trouble. Niufeng's words were full of mockery. The most powerful part of the raging fire diamond body was the toughness of the body and the countless golden Buddha fire on it. Once touched by the Buddha fire, it could never be extinguished. It had to be completely burned out. Daring to deal with the raging fire diamond body with his bare hands was simply courting death. Do you think such a small flame can hurt me? Ridiculous. Chu Fengyan snorted coldly. His right hand turned into a dragon claw and clawed at Niufeng. The Buddha fire surrounding the raging Inferno Vajra immediately swept towards the dragon claw. Niufeng's face was full of disdain when he saw this. However, in the next moment, Niufeng's face was completely frozen. The Buddha fire burned on the dragon claw, but was unable to cause any damage to the dragon claw. Countless flames burned over, but to Chu Fengyan's dragon claw, it was like a tickle. This little Buddha fire is not even comparable to the weakest purple sun primordial fire in the upper nine heavens. The purple sun primordial fire could not burn my body. How dare this little Buddha fire be delusional? Chu Fengyan waved his hand, and a torrential spiritual power suddenly erupted from the dragon claw and swept out crazily. Extinguish. The Buddha fire was completely extinguished in an instant. Under Chu Fengyan's power, it was completely extinguished. Niufeng's raging fire diamond body had lost the Buddha fire in it. It looked bare and was simply comical. This? How strong are you? How could you break my Buddha fire? A person like you should have been selected by the elders and become their disciple. How could you be unknown in the outer sect? The Buddha fire on Niufeng's body was extinguished by Chu Fengyan, and he screamed in disbelief. Disciple of the elders? Which elder is qualified to be my master? I didn't want to fight, but since you forced me to, I'll take half of your saint blood essence as compensation for your presumptuous behavior. Chu Fengyan sneered, and the dragon claw on his right hand exerted strength again. He clawed at Niufeng's body, causing the raging fire diamond body on his body to shatter and crack. The raging fire diamond body, which was known to have an invincible defense, was shattered by Chu Fengyan's claw. This was beyond everyone's understanding. Niufeng, who was considered to be invincible in everyone's eyes, was defeated so miserably by a person. Damn it, how dare you be so arrogant when your bloodline is only slightly stronger? The gap between our realms is not something your bloodline can make up for. Ma Yun, who was standing at the side, could not wait any longer. He suddenly attacked when he saw Niufeng being suppressed. He suddenly let out a roar, and a long saber appeared in his hand. The moment the long saber appeared, the surrounding space seemed to be filled with countless saber edges. 3,000 saber edges. Ma Yun has actually unleashed this move. This is the realm that countless saber cultivators dream of. His saber intent has actually reached this level. 3,000 saber edges was close to the realm of a sword cultivator's 1,000 saber edges. When the saber was executed, it was as if 3,000 saber edges were slashed at the same time. This saber move was known to be difficult to defend against. All the saber edges appeared with the same target, Chu Fengyan. Ma Yun, in particular, had attacked without making any noise. Who could possibly defend themselves when they were caught off guard? The crowd did not expect Ma Yun to launch a sneak attack. Thank you for Li Yoyu's tip. Chapter 461. Ma Yun was one of the best among this batch of newcomers. He was extremely strong and had the potential to be promoted to an inner disciple. No one had expected that Ma Yun would suddenly attack, taking advantage of the moment when Chu Fengyan was fighting with Niu Feng to launch a sneak attack on Chu Fengyan. For example, Ma Yun, an expert who was already somewhat famous, actually chose to launch a sneak attack. This made many warriors feel a little ashamed. Despicable. It's already 2 against 1. How dare he sneak an attack? Many warriors couldn't help but curse in their hearts. Although they didn't dare to say it out loud, their eyes revealed all their thoughts. Ma Yun didn't care about the gazes of the warriors. So what if it was a sneak attack? Chu Fengyan's strength was obviously much stronger than it looked. He could suppress Niu Feng. Instead of fighting him head-on, it was better to sneak an attack. Now that Chu Fengyan was fighting Niu Feng, he couldn't afford to be distracted. A sneak attack was definitely the best choice. Brat, I'll cut off your arms first. Let's see how you fight us. In the Beimeng Academy, rashly killing other disciples was a great sin. Therefore, Ma Yun attacked with his blade. The target of the 3,000 blades was Chu Fengyan's arms. As long as the arms of a warrior were cut off, they would lose 90% of their strength. At that time, they wouldn't be at their mercy. Sneak attack? Chu Fengyan's eyes moved. He also saw Ma Yun's action. Just as the 3,000 blades arrived in front of Chu Fengyan's mouth slowly moved. Break! Chu Fengyan's mouth moved slightly, but what came out was a dragon roar. The real Tianlong's 8 Tianlong sounds came out of Chu Fengyan's mouth. The 8 Tianlong sounds was a martial technique created according to the dragon roar. Now that Chu Fengyan had the battle dragon bloodline, it was easy for him to use this move. Not only was there a dragon roar, but there was also a dragon's might. Crash! A dragon's roar resounded through the entire mountain range. The 3,000 blades were completely destroyed by this dragon's roar. No one had expected that Chu Fengyan, who seemed to have entered a dead end, would actually make such a shocking reversal. He did not attack at all. He merely shouted a single word and destroyed Ma Yun's strongest move, the 3,000 sabers. Chu Fengyan's strength was far beyond everyone's imagination. Even though he was fighting 1 against 2, Ma Yun's sneak attack didn't pose any threat to Chu Fengyan. Instead, he was forced to retreat by Chu Fengyan. Ma Yun suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream as the dragon roar resounded. Following Ma Yun's screams, the crowd looked over and saw a huge crack on his chest. It was as if his chest had exploded. As it turned out, Chu Fengyan's dragon roar had actually caused Ma Yun's chest to burst. Rumor had it that a tiger's roar would frighten anyone. Now, Chu Fengyan's dragon roar had caused Ma Yun's chest to explode. A copious amount of blood flowed out from the wound. The 8 notes of the heavenly dragon contained supreme mysteries. Legend had it that when a true expert shouted it, no one within a radius of 100 miles would survive. Although Chu Fengyan was still far from reaching this level, it was more than enough to deal with Ma Yun. Too trash? Didn't you want to seize my cave dwelling? You even wanted to launch a sneak attack on me? Break my arms? Strip my bloodline? Chu Fengyan's eyes were extremely cold. He looked at Niu Feng and Ma Yun and coldly shouted, "Today, I will take away half of the saint blood essence in your bodies. I will let you know that there are some people you can't afford to provoke." Chu Fengyan's words were extremely ruthless. Now that he had come to the Northern Mang Academy, If he didn't display his strength, these people would really think that he was a pushover. Chu Fengmian, you dare to take our blood essence? Niu Feng wasn't afraid at all when he heard Chu Fengmian's threat. The two of us have already joined the storm gathering. We have joined senior brother Wu Fengyan. Senior brother Wu Fengyan won't let you off if you dare to take our blood essence. What? Storm gathering? Isn't that one of the outer sect's forces? Rumor has it that Wu Fengyan, the founder of the storm gathering, is a super genius ranked 11th on the mortal ranking. His position in the outer sect is close to the top 10. Someone like him only needs a little bit of opportunity to be promoted to the inner sect. As long as he obtains a little bit of opportunity, he will be invited to the inner sect. Since the two of them have joined the storm gathering, then who among this batch of newcomers would dare to provoke them? Many people's eyes changed when they heard the word storm gathering. Many people had envy in their eyes. They had just joined the Northern Mang Academy, but they could already rely on such a force. They never imagined that Niu Feng and Ma Yun would be able to climb such a big tree right after joining the Northern Mang Academy. There were countless forces in the Northern Mang Academy. They were all small groups, and the Storm Gathering was one of the small groups in the outer sect. The Storm Gathering was considered above average among the countless forces in the outer sect. Some of the veteran outer sect disciples would have to weigh their strength before provoking them. Among this batch of newcomers, such a force would definitely be considered a colossus. It was good to lean against a big tree. Now that the two of them had joined the storm gathering, they would be able to rely on it. This was also the reason why the two of them dared to be so arrogant. They didn't believe that Chu Fengmian would dare to make an enemy out of the storm gathering. Only the top 10 disciples of the Northern Mang Academy's mortal ranking were qualified to disregard the storm gathering. But it was clear that Chu Fengmian didn't possess such strength. Brat, since you already know that we're from the storm gathering, you should know what to do, right? When Niu Feng saw that Chu Fengmian was silent, the expression on his face became arrogant again. This cave abode was personally assigned to us by senior brother Wu Fengyan. You should obediently hand it over. Otherwise, you won't be so lucky when senior brother Wu Fengyan personally takes action. Storm gathering? Wu Fengyan? What the hell is that? Chu Fengmian had a mocking look on his face as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The two of you still dare to threaten me? It looks like the lesson I gave you wasn't enough. Today, I'm going to establish my prestige in the outer sect. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll think that any random person dares to threaten me? Chu Fengmian's words were extremely arrogant. He didn't even put the storm gathering in his eyes. He didn't even put Wu Fengyan, who was ranked 11th on the mortal ranking, in his eyes. Today's second chapter. I'll try to add more chapters in the next 2 days. Chapter 462. Chu Fengmian's words were extremely arrogant and domineering. For the newcomers, any martial artist on the ranking list of young masters was a colossal existence. They were definitely strong and were not people that the newcomers could fight against. Wu Fengyan was an outstanding cultivator on the mortal ranking, ranked 11th. He was only one step away from becoming one of the top 10 outer disciples. Such a person already had the strength to be promoted to an inner disciple. Chu Fengmian said that he didn't even put Wu Fengyan in his eyes. Such arrogance. What? Chu Fengmian, you dare to insult senior brother Wu Fengyan? Niu Feng was stunned. Then he shouted, "Are you courting death? You're the ones courting death." Chu Fengmian let out a roar and waved his hand, suppressing Niu Feng and Ma Yun. Two pieces of trash. How dare you come to snatch my cave abode and threaten me? Today, I'll teach you a lesson. I'll tell you that there are some people that you can't afford to offend. Chu Fengmian didn't show any mercy. He waved his hand and slapped down. This palm strike landed directly on the backs of these two people. Arg! Niu Feng and Ma Yun screamed at the same time. The skin on their bodies burst open, and countless saint blood essences were drawn out by Chu Fengmian's power. 90% of their saint blood essences have been extracted by Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had devoured all the saint blood essences and integrated them into the primordial killing god, adding another portion of power to his slaughter sword technique. Niu Feng and Ma Yun's faces were extremely pale after 90% of their blood essences were extracted. After all, They were outstanding cultivators among the saints. Even if 90% of their blood essences were extracted, they wouldn't die. However, they were still half dead, especially when 90% of their saint blood essences had taken away most of their strength. Now, the two of them had less than 10% of their strength left. Their aptitude was completely destroyed, and it was impossible for them to recover. From now on, the two of them could only be at the bottom of the saints. They were the weakest among the saints, and they wouldn't be able to make any breakthroughs for the rest of their lives. In this Northern Mang Academy, there was no possibility of promotion. Even in the outer sect, there was no status. How ruthless! After extracting 90% of the saint's essence blood, the two of them have become trash. Any one of us can easily crush them. Some of the warriors felt a lingering fear when they saw this scene, especially those who had originally come to snatch Chu Fengmian's cave residence. They couldn't help but rejoice that they had come too late. Otherwise, they would be the ones whose saint blood essence was being extracted. As a genius of a generation, he had the ambition to join the North Mang Academy. If his aptitude was directly destroyed and he could only become the weakest saint, he would probably have the heart to die. Chu Fengmian's methods were too ruthless. Although he didn't kill the two of them, he drained all their power and crippled their cultivation. To these geniuses, proud sons of heaven, such a blow was even more painful than being killed. Chu Fengmian's methods are too ruthless. I'm afraid that no one among the newcomers will dare to provoke him now. That's for sure. The title of Newcomer King this year will definitely belong to him. Another cultivator spoke. To be able to defeat Niu Feng and Ma Yun by himself, with such strength, he would definitely be the newcomer king of this year's newcomers. No one in this year's newcomers could match him. This person's strength is pretty good, but his character is too arrogant. I'm afraid that the Fengyun gathering won't let this matter go. Another cultivator spoke. Since he dared to scold Wu Fengyun will definitely not let him off. So what? Since this brat dares to scold Wu Fengyun, he must have a trump card. Look, he didn't even use his full strength when dealing with Niu Feng and Ma Yun. Trump card? I think this brat is too arrogant. He doesn't know how terrifying a cultivator on the mortal ranking is. In the North Mang Academy, anyone on the mortal ranking isn't easy to deal with. Chu Fengmian listened to the discussions, but he didn't care at all. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Chu Fengmian wasn't afraid of anyone who came to deal with him. Chu Fengmian's eyes glanced at Niu Feng and Ma Yun as he coldly barked. Why aren't you getting lost? Let's go. Niu Feng and Ma Yun's eyes were filled with resentment. They glanced at Chu Fengmian, then slowly helped each other up and left. Let's go and report this to senior brother Wu Fengyun. Let senior brother Wu Fengyun make the decision for us. That's right. This brat is too arrogant. Let senior brother Wu Fengyun deal with him. He must cripple this brat. The two of them left with resentment in their hearts. Everyone, why aren't you leaving? Chu Fengmian glanced at the cultivators who were still gathered outside the cave and coldly snorted. Let's go, let's go. These cultivators left one after another. When they left, their eyes flickered. No one knew what they were thinking. Today, they had just joined the North Mang Academy, and this kind of thing happened. Everyone had their own thoughts about the current situation. After dealing with the two troublesome ants, Chu Fengmian didn't feel anything. He let them live because this was the North Mang Academy, and it wasn't good to kill. From Tuoba Ding, Chu Fengmian roughly understood the rules of the North Mang Academy. They could fight each other, but they couldn't kill each other. As long as no lives were lost, everything was fine. Now that Chu Fengmian had just joined the North Mang Academy, it wasn't good to openly challenge the Academy's bottom line. However, this was only temporary. Only when Chu Fengmian gained a foothold in the North Mang Academy and had enough strength would these rules be useless to him. Chu Fengmian returned to the cave and continued to arrange the restrictions and arrays. The countless restrictions and arrays he arranged couldn't be broken even by ordinary life and death realm cultivators. After preparing everything, Chu Fengmian slowly sat down in the cave and began to rest. I wonder how Hanyu Li's side is doing. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself inwardly and faintly smiled. After all, she's following an elder. I'm afraid she's doing much better than me. innate godly body, coupled with the elder's nurturing, I'm afraid her strength will increase by leaps and bounds. I also have to increase my strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, I won't be able to catch up. Chu Fengmian smiled and sat on the ground, peacefully cultivating. Chapter 463. Northern Mang Academy was different from small places like Qin Emperor Country and Wuxing Country. It was a place where true geniuses gathered. In the vast Northern Mang Academy, every outer disciple had to go through a test and stand out among 100 people. It could be said that every disciple was a genius outside and was the target of competition for all the big sections. The competition inside was extremely fierce. Chu Fengmian was only an outer disciple. Above him were inner disciples, seed disciples, and even the most mysterious core disciples. Among them, some seed disciples were strong enough to contend against life and death experts, and their status was even close to some elders. As for the core disciples, each one of them was a big shot. In the academy, their status surpassed many elders. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he was far from being able to contend against them. Chu Fengmian had to increase his strength to contend against these big shots. Without strength, he would be crushed to death sooner or later. For 2 days, Chu Fengmian had been sitting in the cave, motionless. He was completely focused on cultivating. Chu Fengmian's current realm had reached a bottleneck, and his strength could no longer increase. Therefore, what Chu Fengmian needed to do now was to comprehend the spatial law. After devouring countless saints' blood essence, Chu Fengmian's comprehension of the law had reached the point where he could break through at any time. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't rush to break through, because Chu Fengmian sensed that with his aptitude, he could contend against life and death experts with his current realm of wind controlling realm. Chu Fengmian's aptitude was definitely rare in the 9 regions. With such aptitude, it would be extremely difficult to break through. From wind controlling realm to divine force realm, one strength would be a qualitative breakthrough. Ordinary wind controlling realm warriors would need to consume a lot of spirit power to break through to divine force realm. And Chu Fengmian's consumption was 1,000 times, 10,000 times more than theirs. If he rashly broke through now, he might fail. After all, the higher one's aptitude, the harder it would be to break through. Therefore, Chu Fengmian had to be fully prepared. Everything he was doing now was preparation. Now that Chu Fengmian had obtained the Heaven Origin Spirit Pill, he had an additional boost, but it was still not enough. If I can cultivate in the cave on the Saint Mountain, I can borrow the power of the Spirit Spring to leap into life and death realm. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The Holy Mountain was the mountain range closest to the Spirit Spring. This mountain range didn't belong to any disciple. In the Northern Mang Academy, as long as one had enough merit points, one could exchange for a chance to cultivate on the Saint Mountain. Many disciples in the Bei Mang Academy would choose to accumulate merit points to break through on the Sacred Mountain. This was also Chu Fengmian's goal. According to Tuoba Ding, I need at least 10,000 contribution points to cultivate on the Sacred Mountain. It seems like I have to think of a way to save up some contribution points. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. In the Northern Mang Academy, the easiest way to accumulate contribution points was to go to the sect and accept missions. Completing the missions would give you contribution points. I'll have to wait for a few days. At the very least, I'll have to wait until I've completed the entry mission before I can freely accept missions. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Every outer disciple who entered the Northern Mang Academy had to complete a mission. This mission was mandated by the Academy and couldn't be rejected. It was to test the loyalty of the disciples. Only by completing this mission could one be considered as a true member of the Northern Mang Academy. Only then could one move freely. Chu Fengmian had to wait for a few more days. He couldn't rush it now. After I've accumulated enough contribution points, I'll be able to cultivate on the Sacred Mountain and break through to the Divine Power Realm. At that time, I'll truly soar to the sky. Chu Fengmian was looking forward to the Divine Power Realm. Everyone below the Saint Realm was an ant. This sentence indicated the difference between the Divine Power Realm and the Imperial Wind Realm. Although there's only a gap of 1 level, It was like a ravine that couldn't be crossed. With Chu Fengmian's aptitude, he would truly soar to the sky after he stepped into the divine power realm. Just as Chu Fengmian was deep in thought, 7 figures suddenly descended outside of Chu Fengmian's cave dwelling and arrived at the periphery of the cave dwelling. This group of people were all wearing outer disciple robes. However, there were 2 large words wind and cloud on their shoulders, revealing their identities. This sudden commotion attracted many cultivators in the surroundings. They peeked their heads out to observe, wanting to see what was going on. When they saw the words wind and cloud on the 7 people's shoulders, their expressions changed drastically. They're from the Wind and Cloud Assembly. As expected, the people from the Wind and Cloud Assembly won't let this matter rest. The 2 words wind and cloud on their shoulders had already exposed their identities. Chu Fengmian injured Niu Feng and Ma Yun, and even cursed at Wu Fengyan. The people from the Wind and Cloud Assembly really came. Senior Brother Feng, this is the kid's cave. He's the one who injured us, and even cursed at Senior Brother Wu. Among the 7 people, 2 were Niu Feng and Ma Yun. Niu Feng pointed at Chu Fengmian's cave and flattered Senior Brother Feng beside him. He's in the cave right now. Upon hearing Niu Feng's words, Senior Brother Feng, who was the leader of the group, looked towards the cave dwelling and saw Chu Fengmian at a glance. After sizing up Chu Fengmian's cultivation level, a look of disdain appeared on his face. You 2 trash were actually defeated by a wind resistance realm ant. You're not worthy to be part of our Wind and Cloud Assembly. From today onwards, the 2 of you are expelled from the Wind and Cloud Assembly. Yes, yes. Niu Feng and Ma Yun hurriedly echoed. The 2 of them were already crippled. They were powerless to resist being expelled from the Wind and Cloud Assembly. I don't care about the matter between the 2 of us. However, this person dared to insult Senior Brother Wu. His arrogance hasn't changed. He has committed a heinous crime and must be punished. Niu Feng spoke in a tearful voice. His face was filled with loyalty. He had already become a cripple and no longer had any hope. However, he didn't want Chu Fengmian to have an easy time. He had to make Chu Fengmian a cripple too. Therefore, he summoned the people from the Wind and Cloud Assembly to deal with Chu Fengmian. This kid actually dared to insult Senior Brother Wu. He must be tired of living. A puny newcomer actually dares to challenge the dignity of our Wind and Cloud Assembly. How presumptuous, Senior Brother Feng coldly said. If we don't teach him a lesson today, how can our Wind and Cloud Assembly establish itself in the outer sanctum? Chapter 464. Zhongjun, you go. Grab this brat from the cave and cripple his cultivation. Let him know the consequences of offending our Fengyun Union. Senior Brother Feng pointed at a monkey-faced man beside him. When Senior Brother Feng spoke, it sounded as if he was a monarch overlooking the world, high and mighty. It was as if everything about Chu Fengmian could be casually punished by him. Yes, when Zhongjun heard this, his face became even more malevolent. Coupled with his face, he appeared even more sinister. With a move of his feet, he directly arrived in front of Chu Fengmian's cave. Brat, get out here! Zhongjun yelled at the cave abode. Inside the cave, Chu Fengmian heard Zhongjun's voice and couldn't help but frown. However, he sat in the same place, too lazy to move. It seemed as if he had completely ignored Zhongjun, seeing that Chu Fengmian had completely ignored his words. Zhongjun's face revealed some anger. Damn it! A newcomer actually dares to ignore my words. Sure enough, his arrogance knows no bounds. Zhongjun, don't talk nonsense with this brat. Directly grab him from the cave. Senior Brother Feng, who was behind him, couldn't help but coldly snort. Yes. Zhongjun smiled malevolently. Hearing this, spiritual energy suddenly condensed in his fist. Suddenly, a fist bombarded toward Chu Fengmian's cave. It directly shattered the countless restrictions on Chu Fengmian's cave. Boom! When the fist bombarded, the next moment, the result was beyond everyone's expectations. Zhongjun, who had just bombarded Chu Fengmian's cave, suddenly retreated and spat out a mouthful of blood. Zhongjun bombarded Chu Fengmian's cave, wanting to break the countless restrictions on Chu Fengmian's cave. However, his strength was completely unable to shake the countless restrictions that Chu Fengmian had set up. The backlash caused him to spit out blood. This sudden turn of events caused the other Fengyun gathering disciples to be stunned. What's going on? Zhong Jun actually couldn't break the restrictions. When some of the surrounding warriors saw this scene, they couldn't help but start discussing among themselves. Zhong Jun was also a senior disciple of the Beimeng Academy's outer court. He had reached the 9th level of the Divine Power Realm, and his strength had reached the peak of the Saint Realm. He could be considered a well-known figure in the outer sect. But now, he was unable to break the restriction set up by Chu Fengmian's cave, even after using all his strength. This made many people laugh out loud. The reputation of the Fengyun Assembly was not that good. Seeing the people from the Fengyun Assembly suffer, many warriors snickered in their hearts. The way the Fengyun Assembly does things is incomparably overbearing. Every year, many of the newcomers are bullied by them. Do they really think that they can be lawless just because they have Wu Fengyun? Wu Fengyun hasn't even entered the top 10 of the mortal ranking. This newcomer does have some skills. A wind resistance realm kid can actually become the newcomer king. He must have some unique methods. Sure enough, the people of the Wind Cloud Union are all defeated. It wasn't just the disciples from Chu Fengmian's mountain range that had come. The disciples from the surrounding mountain ranges had all gathered to watch. How could they not know about the commotion caused by the Fengyun Assembly? Some of the disciples who had some grudges with the Fengyun Assembly all laughed without restraint. Their laughter was simply ridicule, causing Senior Brother Fong's face to turn gloomy. Senior Brother Fong, I can't break the restriction in this kid's cave. Zhong Jun returned and looked at Senior Brother Fong as he whispered, Trash! Our Fengyun Assembly has wasted so many resources to nurture you. Senior Brother Fong slapped Zhong Jun's face and sent him flying. Being humiliated in front of so many people made Senior Brother Fong extremely angry. Especially the surrounding laughter. It was incomparably ear-piercing. Senior Brother Fong looked at Chu Fengmian in the cave and coldly said, Kid, come out of the cave obediently. Our Fengyun Assembly will only break your arms and legs. This is your last chance. If you continue to resist and become an enemy of our Fengyun Assembly, you will most likely die without a burial ground. You better be clear about this. The threat in Senior Brother Fong's words was self-evident. In the Northern Mang Academy, even the strongest disciple wouldn't dare to risk the Academy's restriction to kill someone. However, all the Northern Mang Academy's disciples couldn't stay in the Academy all the time. They would definitely rush out to carry out missions. Once they left the Academy, the rules wouldn't apply. Every year, the number of disciples who died outside the Academy wasn't small. Only a small number of them were killed by external enemies. Most of the disciples were killed by other disciples because of the Academy's grudges. This matter had always been an unspoken rule in the Northern Mang Academy. Although everyone knew about it, no one dared to reveal it. However, this time, Senior Brother Fong spoke directly and openly. He didn't conceal his killing intent at all. Kid, it's foolish of you to contend against our Fengyun Assembly with your own strength. Come out obediently and kneel down. If we break your arms and legs, we will give you a way out. How about it? Senior Brother Fong looked at Chu Fengmian and said indifferently. His tone seemed to imply that he was giving Chu Fengmian some benefits and showing mercy. Kneeling on the ground and having his limbs broken? For a cultivator of Chu Fengmian's realm, having 4 limbs broken would only take a few days to recover. It wouldn't harm his body. However, if he were to do so, what would be harmed would not be the cultivator's body, but his dignity. If a venerated martial artist didn't have dignity and a martial heart, it would be impossible for him to become an expert. To a genius, this was extremely important. Senior Brother Fong's words weren't so much a show of mercy, but everyone could hear the ruthlessness in his words. If Chu Fengmian did that, he might not be able to break through in the future. He would be no different from a cripple. Of course, Chu Fengmian knew this very well. Moreover, no one in this world had the qualifications to make him kneel down. What big words! Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Chu Fengmian's face revealed a mocking expression. Are the people of the Fengyun Assembly all idiots? I wonder if your Fengyun Assembly's Wu Fengyun is also an idiot like you. Trash. You can't even break my restriction, yet you still dare to speak so arrogantly. Didn't you say that he was a trash? Then come over and see if you can break it. Chu Fengmian's words were practically aimed at senior brother Fang's nose. Not only was he scolding him, but he was also scolding the entire Fengyun Assembly. Chapter 465. Haha, no wonder he's the newcomer king. He's quite domineering, daring to speak to Fang Heng like that. Interesting. The Fengyun Assembly is used to being arrogant. They want to bully a newcomer. I didn't expect them to meet a tough opponent. He doesn't care about the Fengyun Assembly at all. This newcomer's strength is really strange. He's only in the wind controlling realm. Even Zhong Jun couldn't break the restriction he set up. Let's see. Fang Heng isn't someone that Zhong Jun can compare with. After all, he's a martial artist on the human ranking list. Even if he's at the bottom of the human ranking list, he's not someone that ordinary outer disciples can compare with. Many of the onlookers were excited. The quiet outer sect was now bustling with noise and excitement. Everyone came to watch the show. Arrogant. Senior brother Fang Heng, coldly spat out these two words. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Chu Fengmian. Arrogant kid, wait until I break your restriction and drag you out of the cave. I'll definitely cripple your cultivation. Fang Heng leaped up and slapped the air. Suddenly, an incomparably huge handprint appeared. Countless demonic figures appeared on this handprint, and it looked extremely mysterious. This is the demonic shadow handprint. Beimang Academy's Earth-level martial technique. This is Fang Heng's strongest trump card. It seems like he's really angered. He even used this move. Some of the martial artists seemed to have some understanding of Fang Heng and said directly, Fang Heng is really angry. This kid is going to be defeated. This handprint was thrown out in the air and directly bombarded Chu Fengmian's cave. The countless demonic shadows behind the handprint seemed to have a lot of power. They were added to the handprint and bombarded it like waves. Boom, boom, boom. A total of 7 explosions were heard. This demonic shadow handprint contained a total of 7 layers of hidden power. All of them bombarded Chu Fengmian's cave. Kid, I've broken your turtle shell. It's time for you to come out. Fang Heng smiled confidently. He didn't believe that Chu Fengmian's restriction could compete with his strongest martial technique. However, in the next moment, a dragon's roar suddenly resounded. The image of a dragon appeared in the restrictive formation that Chu Fengmian had set up. The dragon's shadow roared in the sky. With a sudden roar, the demonic sound giant palm attack was completely disintegrated. This was Fang Heng's most powerful move, the demonic shadow handprint. Even the restriction set up by Chu Fengmian could not be shaken and could not be harmed in the slightest. With just this little bit of strength, you dare to speak so arrogantly? You can't even break the restriction I set up. You're just like Zhong Jun, a piece of trash. Chu Fengmian laughed out loud. How can this restriction be so powerful? No, I don't believe that Fang Heng, a martial artist on the heaven roll, can't deal with such a little guy. Fang Heng roared furiously as his spiritual energy surged. He spat out a mouthful of Saint Blood essence. Burning blood essence. Demonic shadow condensed. 10 directional demonic palm. Fang Heng was so furious that he burned his blood essence to break Chu Fengmian's restriction. All of a sudden, 10 demonic shadow palms condensed in the sky. Kid, don't think that you can be so arrogant just because you know some restrictions. Today, I'll break your turtle shell. Let's see what else you can rely on. Fang Heng's face turned red from anger as he roared. 10 directional demonic shadow palm. Destroy. All of a sudden, the palms of the 10 demonic shadows in the sky fell one after another, striking at Chu Fengmian's restriction. I'll let you be arrogant for a while. Do you really think you're a big shot? Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He wanted these people from the Fengyun Assembly to back off, but he didn't expect them to be so tactless. Get lost. Chu Fengmian roared as he came out of the cave and faced the 10 directional demonic shadow palms in the sky. Kid, you actually came out. Looking at Chu Fengmian coming out of the cave, Fang Heng's expression became even more ferocious. I thought you'd keep hiding in your turtle shell. Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish. Then I'll suppress you first, and then slowly cripple your cultivation. Fang Heng laughed maniacally. With a thought, the 10-directional demonic shadow palm changed direction and blasted towards Chu Fengmian. Break from me. Chu Fengmian looked at the 10-directional demonic shadow palms falling from the sky and said indifferently. He waved his hand, and a surge of spiritual energy rushed towards the palms. Boom! Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy collided with the 10-directional demonic shadow palms in the sky. In the blink of an eye, the 10-directional demonic shadow palm was directly shattered into pieces. Bang! 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 The scattered spiritual energy hit Fang Heng's body and sent him flying. His face was extremely pale, and he was seriously injured. How is this possible? My 10-directional demonic shadow palms. How could it be broken? Fang Heng suffered a great loss and was seriously injured. His face was extremely pale as he muttered to himself, unable to accept what had happened. He was a martial artist on the mortal ranking and a famous expert in the outer sect. How could he believe that he was defeated by a newcomer? You don't believe it? You still don't understand? Chu Fengmian looked at Fang Heng and sneered. With your strength, you are nothing more than an ant in front of me. If you want me to kneel and have my limbs broken, then kneel. While speaking, Chu Fengmian waved his hand and pressed it towards Fang Heng. The enormous pressure caused Fang Heng's face to contort in pain. You're just a newcomer. How can you make me kneel? You're too arrogant. Senior Brother Wu will never let you go. Fang Heng shouted. Senior Brother Wu will be here soon. You're going to die soon. Is that so? So what if Wu Fengyun is here? Do you think he can save you? Don't let him run away when the time comes. Chu Fengmian said calmly. He did not take Fang Heng's threat to heart. Kneel. The moment these words were spoken, Chu Fengmian's mind moved. Another wave of spiritual energy emerged and supported Chu Fengmian's palm. Suddenly, the pressure on Fang Heng increased by countless times. He could no longer hold on and knelt on the ground. At the same time, a gust of spiritual energy surrounded Fang Heng, causing his limbs to twist and break. Fang Heng wanted to make Chu Fengmian kneel and break his limbs. Right now, Chu Fengmian wanted to give Fang Heng a taste of his own medicine, giving him a taste of his own medicine. Today's update. Please support me. Chapter 466. Arc. Fang Heng's cries of agony could still be heard. The injuries on his body weren't important, but the humiliation in his heart was more important. For a genius like him, the humiliation of kneeling on the ground was something that he couldn't accept. This kneeling had left an indelible shadow in the depths of Fang Heng's heart. In the future, whenever Fang Heng's strength improved and he wanted to make a breakthrough, today's scene would appear in his mind. It made it impossible for Fang Heng to take another step forward. Fang Heng's life is ruined. I'm afraid that all his achievements will come to an end. It's easier said than done to get rid of this shadow in his heart. Today's scene is like a heart demon that will follow him forever. How is it possible for him to overcome this heart demon? It's hard for even 1 out of 1,000 geniuses to overcome it. Fang Heng is completely crippled. Sigh. With Fang Heng's aptitude, he was already bound to be promoted to the inner sect. I never expected that he would suffer such a calamity today. A cultivator on the mortal ranking actually fell to such a state. It's truly tragic. Fang Heng was considered an influential figure in the outer sect. He was ranked on the mortal ranking and had great hopes of being promoted to the inner sect. But today, he was easily defeated by Chu Fengmian and was forced to kneel on the ground. This scene made many people sigh. This ferocious person isn't someone that we can deal with. Run. Let's go. We'll ask Senior Brother Wu to deal with this brat. The remaining disciples of the Wind Cloud Meat wanted to escape when they saw Fang Heng being suppressed by Chu Fengmian. Even Fang Heng wasn't Chu Fengmian's opponent. Even if they joined hands, they still wouldn't be Chu Fengmian's opponent. Trying to escape? Try to escape after showing off? Don't think that it'll be easy. Chu Fengmian coldly snorted and suddenly waved his hand, sealing the surrounding space. No matter how the disciples of the wind cloud tried to escape, they couldn't escape from this region. All of you kneel. Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and a surge of spiritual energy descended from the sky. The disciples of the wind cloud all had pale faces as they shouted, "Senior Brother Wu, save us." "Save you?" "Even if Wu Fengmian is here, he will still kneel." Chu Fengmian coldly snorted with a cold expression. Bang! A loud sound was heard. The disciples of the wind cloud all knelt on the ground under this surge of spiritual energy. These storm disciples were kneeling in a row in front of Chu Fengmian's cave. It was an extremely special scene. A newcomer. How's to make an enemy of the wind cloud Suddenly, a figures along with the figures Fengmian S's was Feng SSSS. Fengmian and the SSST Feng S's to TT to the S's Feng S. Looks first to this was a supreme and mysterious technique that could only be obtained when one's fist intent reached the pinnacle of perfection. Fist Wind Tiger. This fist contained the ferocity of a tiger, and its power was even greater than the previous one. Evil Subduing White Tiger Fist. This is Wu Fengyun's Evil Subduing White Tiger Fist. Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at the sky. With a glance, he saw a tall figure. This person's appearance was ordinary, but he had a domineering aura. He was definitely a martial Dao expert. This was the leader of the Wind Cloud the expert ranked 11th on the mortal list, Wu Fengyan. "Brat, how dare you injure our Wind Cloud members and make them kneel? You're simply looking down on our Wind Cloud Anyone who dares to go against our Wind Cloud must die. Chu Fengyan, you're just a newcomer. How dare you challenge my authority? Today, I'll suppress you and let you know the immensity of heaven and earth." Wu Fengyan looked at Chu Fengmian and furiously shouted. His tone was high and mighty, as if he was announcing Chu Fengmian's punishment. If he wanted to punish Chu Fengmian, then punish Chu Fengmian. "Wu Fengyan, do you really think you're a big shot? A mere outer sect disciple who isn't even in the top 10 of the mortal list wants to show off in the outer sect?" Chu Fengmian raised his head and looked at Wu Fengyan. His tone wasn't polite at all. "It's fine if your Wind Cloud is usually arrogant, but since you dare to be arrogant in front of me today, then from today onwards, your Wind Cloud will be completely destroyed." As Chu Fengmian spoke, he waved his hand and suddenly sent a palm strike towards the sky. Chu Fengmian's palm strike condensed spiritual energy in the air and turned into a golden dragon. The golden dragon and the white tiger clashed in the air. Suddenly, the golden dragon unleashed its might. A supreme dragon aura condensed and directly bit towards the white tiger, devouring it. Destroy the Wind Cloud Let's see if you have the ability to do so. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Wu Fengyan was furious. Even those in the top 10 of the mortal list don't dare to say that they can destroy our Wind Cloud You're just a newcomer, yet you dare to go against our Wind Cloud You think you can be arrogant just because you have a few fortuitous encounters? The martial Dao realm isn't something that can be made up for by fortuitous encounters. Supreme Martial Dao. Only Martial Dao reigns supreme. Wu Fengyan roared. Suddenly, another 4 arms grew out from his back. At that moment, he appeared to have a total of 6 arms. He looked extremely strange, like a monster. However, Chu Fengyan knew that this appearance was the appearance of an ancient martial god. It was said that the ancient martial god was born with 6 arms and was extremely powerful. He was ranked at the pinnacle of the martial Dao. Now that Wu Fengyan had condensed his martial Dao, he had transformed into the appearance of an ancient martial god. Although it was only his appearance, it was enough to support the power of an ancient martial god. It allowed his martial Dao to soar to the sky and reach an extremely high level. Martial God True Body. This is Wu Fengyan's Martial God True Body. It's just like the legends. 6 arms. This is the appearance of an ancient martial god. Wu Fengyan's aptitude is extremely high. The last time he used the Martial God True Body, he only had 4 arms and was ranked 11th on the mortal list. I didn't expect him to have a breakthrough and condense 6 arms, becoming the appearance of an ancient martial god. I'm afraid his current strength is enough to enter the top 10 of the mortal list. Today's first update. Today's con was really stuck. It took him half a day to write the first update. Sorry for the long wait. Chapter 467. This wasn't the first time they'd seen Wu Fengyun in action. The 11th position on the mortal ranking wasn't obtained empty-handed. It was a position that could only be obtained through countless battles. There was no doubt about Wu Fengyun's strength to be able to secure this position. However, when Wu Fengyun obtained the 11th position on the mortal ranking, his martial god true body only had 4 arms. Now, Wu Fengyun's martial god real body had 6 arms. This meant that Wu Fengyun's martial god real body had 6 arms. This meant that Wu Fengyun's strength was much stronger than when he obtained the 11th position on the mortal ranking. It could be said that Wu Fengyun's strength had truly entered the top 10 of the mortal ranking. Such a person would definitely be a big shot in the outer sect and could be promoted to the inner sect at any time. He was almost invincible in the outer sect. Even Chu Fengyan was slightly surprised when he saw the martial god true body. Wu Fengyun was indeed somewhat skilled. With the martial god true body, his strength was probably not far from Tuobading's. He indeed had the strength of an inner sect disciple. It seemed like the Northern Sea Academy was indeed filled with hidden talents. Wu Fengyun was just an outer sect disciple who wasn't even in the top 10 of the mortal ranking, yet he had such strength. How powerful would the top 10 of the mortal ranking be? Moreover, there were disciples on the earth ranking and sky ranking above them. Brat, it's too late for regrets. Since you dare to make an enemy out of our Fengyun assembly, I'll suppress you today and plant a heart demon in your mind. I'll make sure you remember this nightmare every moment of the day. Wu Fengyun laughed loudly when he saw Chu Fengyan's expression. He thought that Chu Fengyan was afraid. Wu Fengyun's 6 arms suddenly clenched into fists and punched out. This time around, there were 6 evil-suppressing white tigers like the previous one. The 6 evil-suppression white tigers attacked together as if they were psychic. They knew how to cooperate and set up a killing array to trap the golden dragon that Chu Fengyan had condensed. This golden dragon must have consumed a lot of your strength to condense it. I'll devour it first. I'll make this golden dragon my strength. Wu Fengyun laughed loudly. Devour it. As he spoke, the 6 evil-subduing white tigers pounced at the same time and began to tear apart the golden dragon that Chu Fengyan condensed. In the 9 regions, there was a saying in ancient times that there was a fierce battle between dragons and tigers. Right now, the scene in the sky was a perfect example of power. The 6 evil-suppressing white tigers condensed by Wu Fengyun and the golden true dragon condensed by Chu Fengyan started fighting in the air. This scene was breathtaking. What a terrifying duo. Although they are both outer court disciples, their strength far surpasses mine. A casual attack from them is enough to defeat me. An outer disciple mumbled to himself. He raised his head and looked at the scene in the sky. His face was almost blank. This was simply like a fight between immortals. If he were to participate, any random, evil-suppressing white tiger would be enough to completely defeat him. Not to mention that Chu Fengyan had condensed an even more terrifying golden dragon. Wu Fengyun is an influential figure in the outer court. He's close to the top 10 on the mortal ranking. It's not strange for him to have such strength. But Chu Fengyan is just a newcomer this year. A newcomer with such strength that he can challenge someone close to the top 10 on the mortal ranking. Such strength is unprecedented. With such strength, he should have been taken away by the elders. I wonder why he came to the outer court. Don't think too much about it. It's a good thing that such a figure has come to stir up a storm. It's been a long time since it's so lively. Each of the sovereigns carefully observed the scene. Every single action of the fight contained supreme mysteries. Given their strength, they would be able to obtain great benefits if they could comprehend a little of it. Moreover, they also wanted to see how far the newcomer, Chu Fengyan, could go. If Chu Fengyan could defeat Wu Fengyun, then the outer court would be lively. The Beimang Academy's outer court had not seen a newcomer for 100 years. Although Wu Fengyun was ranked 11th on the mortal ranking, his strength was comparable to the top 10 on the mortal ranking. Now that everyone was here to watch the show, they wanted to see who was stronger. The Beimang Academy was located in a unique space. The space here was condensed by some experts with supreme abilities, making it incomparably tough. Although Chu Fengmian and Wu Fengyun were fighting in the air, they would not break the space and their strength would not spread out. Otherwise, the Northern Mang Academy would have long been destroyed by the countless fights between the disciples. Brat, stop resisting. Do you really think that you can resist me? I just want to test your strength. If I use my full strength, you'll be instantly killed by me. You won't stand a chance. Wu Fengyun looked at Chu Fengmian and sneered. A newcomer dares to provoke our Fengyun assembly. This is truly unprecedented. Today, I'll kill the chicken to warn the monkey. Let's see who dares to provoke our Fengyun assembly's prestige in the future. Wu Fengyun's voice was filled with confidence, as if victory was already in his hands. Kill me in an instant? If you have the ability, then come at me. Chu Fengmian glanced at Wu Fengyun with a calm expression. All right, you're courting death. Let me show you just how terrifying my true strength is. I'll let you know that a newcomer like you shouldn't overestimate yourself. Wu Fengyun knitted his brows and his face turned red. He was clearly enraged. The 6 arms of his martial god-true body struck towards the golden dragon in the air at the same time. With every punch, an evil subduing white tiger was formed. In an instant, a total of 49 evil subduing white tigers were formed. As soon as these 49 evil subduing white tigers appeared, they immediately joined forces and formed a killing array, trapping Chu Fengmian's golden dragon within. 49 evil suppressing white tigers, united as one, attacked together. Even if the golden dragon was strong, it was still no match for such a number. Sure enough, Wu Fengyun is still a bit stronger. His Shenluo, subduing tiger fist, has already reached minor completion, condensing 49 evil subduing white tigers. It's said that if this Shenluo subduing tiger fist reaches major completion, it'll be able to condense 81 evil subduing white tigers. That would be truly frightening. Even life and death experts would have to retreat. Second update. Stay up late. Chapter 468. This newcomer's strength is indeed formidable. However, he's still lacking compared to Wu Fengyun. Wu Fengyun is truly enraged. To think that he would even use this move. This newcomer's strength cannot be underestimated. Wu Fengyun will not be able to deal with him without using this move. In terms of strength, this newcomer is no weaker than Wu Fengyun. However, he still lacks a foundation. After all, he's still a newcomer who has just joined the North Sea Academy. He doesn't have the time to build up his foundation. This person's future is limitless. He's almost certain to be promoted to the inner sect. I'm afraid that he might even be promoted to a seed disciple. It's easier said than done to be promoted to a seed disciple. Those seed disciples are all blessed by the heavens. Many of them even have innate divine bodies. They're monstrous geniuses who have great fortuitous encounters. This kid has been defeated by Wu Fengyun today. I'm afraid that he'll have a heart demon. At that time, it'll be difficult for him to advance, let alone talk about his future. While many of the spectating cultivators were discussing, the situation in the air suddenly changed. The 49 ferocious tigers had already joined forces and laid down a killing array to erode the golden dragon. It was likely that the golden dragon would be completely devoured soon. However, at this moment, there was a sudden change. The golden dragon suddenly let out a roar. The moment the roar was heard, the golden dragon's appearance underwent a tremendous change. The scales on the golden dragon had completely transformed into a completely different appearance. At the same time, the power of the golden dragon had also multiplied. What's going on? This sudden change caused Wu Fengyun to be a little stunned. It seemed that he did not understand where Chu Fengmian had obtained such great strength from. However, his expression quickly calmed down. After all, he had been through countless storms. This sudden change was nothing to him. After all, every sovereign martial artist had their own trump card. Even if Chu Fengyan was a newcomer who had just entered the North Sea Academy, it didn't mean that Chu Fengyan didn't have any trump cards. So what if you have a trump card? You're just wasting your strength. In front of my evil, suppressing white tiger, even a real dragon will be torn apart and devoured. Wu Fengyun let out a long roar. Continue the slaughter. Following his command, the evil, suppressing white tigers roared once again and charged forward to continue their battle against the true dragon. The battle between the white tiger and the golden dragon was actually a battle between Chu Fengyan and Wu Fengyun. Whoever lost in this move would be utterly defeated and would not have a second chance. Today, you will definitely lose. Wu Fengyun's eyes were filled with killing intent. Chu Fengyan's aptitude made him feel fear. Since he had provoked such an opponent, Wu Fengyun planned to thoroughly defeat Chu Fengyan today and plant a heart demon in his heart. Only then could he prevent Chu Fengyan from discovering him. If Chu Fengyan were to stay at the academy for a few years, then he would be far from being Chu Fengyan's match. Therefore, he had to defeat Chu Fengyan today. Wu Fengyun had already unleashed his full strength. He looked like a martial god, an invincible martial god. He had the will to win, and his aura was magnificent. Is a mere white tiger worthy of fighting a true dragon? Let me show you the power of a true dragon. Chu Fengyan's mind flickered, and the 1,296 drops of battle dragon blood in his bloodline erupted and strengthened the golden dragon. However, Chu Fengyan had deliberately concealed a portion of the additional power. He had kept the battle dragon's power. It was only the strength of a true dragon. In the current era, the ancient battle dragon had already gone extinct. However, the true dragon still existed. It was not a big deal to obtain the true dragon's fortuitous encounter. Although it was enviable, some true experts would not snatch it because it was not precious enough. However, if people knew that Chu Fengyan had the battle dragon bloodline, then even the big shots of the North Sea Academy would not be able to resist snatching it. After all, the ancient battle dragon's power was recorded in the ancient books as an existence that could destroy the world. Who would not want such a bloodline? Having the battle dragon bloodline was much more powerful than many innate divine bodies. Chu Fengyan naturally had to conceal his strength before he had enough strength in the North Sea Academy. Although he had not used his full strength, it was enough to deal with Wu Fengyun. True dragon dancing heaven and earth. Destroy them all. With the strength of the bloodline, the golden dragon seemed to have been awakened. Its strength suddenly surged. In an instant, it flew into the sky. With a dragon roar, its body started to dance. The dragon dance was definitely a supreme killing move. It carried the supreme dragon's might and terrifying dragon power. The moment the dragon dance appeared, countless evil subduing white tigers in the surroundings retreated. They did not dare to resist. The moment the golden dragon dance moved, all of its strength was added to the dragon's body. The dragon's body danced and suddenly blasted towards the evil subduing white tigers. Rumble, rumble, rumble. With 3 loud explosions, a total of 12 evil subduing white tigers were killed in an instant. These evil subduing white tigers were formed by Wu Fengyun's purest energy. The moment they were blasted apart, he coughed out blood. The power of the backlash was enough to seriously injure him. Break all of them. Of course, Chu Fengyan would not let go of the opportunity to defeat Wu Fengyun. With a roar, the golden dragon attacked again. In an instant, all the evil subduing white tigers in the surroundings were blasted apart. The power of the backlash caused Wu Fengyun to be seriously injured. How could this person's strength reach such a level? What martial skill is this? Dragon Clan martial skill? It's even more terrifying than the Dragon Clan martial skill that the true dragon used in the records. Wu Fengyun's face was filled with disbelief. The Dragon Clan martial skill was not unknown in the Northern Mang Academy. Naturally, there were a few disciples that knew the Dragon Clan martial skill. Among them, there were some inner disciples and even experts. Long Weiyang was a seed disciple that possessed the true dragon bloodline. Wu Fengyun had seen the Dragon Clan martial skill that he used before. Although it was extremely powerful, its might was not even comparable to Chu Fengyan's attack. In terms of might, Chu Fengmian's attack was even more powerful than Long Weiyang's. How could he believe it? Third update today. Chapter 469. It didn't matter how much Wu Fengyun didn't believe it. The scene before him couldn't be changed. Trash. You don't even know my strength, yet you dare to claim that you can suppress me? What a joke. Chu Fengmian sneered as he glanced at Wu Fengyun. You too. Kneel down and accompany your lackeys. As he spoke, Chu Fengmian waved his hand, and an enormous amount of spiritual energy suddenly descended from the sky and pressed down. Wu Fengyun's body was bound by a powerful force and fell to the ground. He couldn't resist and knelt before Chu Fengmian. Wu Fengyun, who was ranked 11th on the mortal ranking, had actually been defeated by Chu Fengmian. This outcome had exceeded everyone's expectations. No one had expected that Wu Fengyun would be defeated by a newcomer. Senior Brother Chu, please spare us. Senior Brother Chu, we were wrong. Please let us go. When the disciples kneeling on the ground saw that Wu Fengyun was suppressed by Chu Fengmian, their faces turned pale and they hurriedly begged for mercy. Wu Fengyun had been defeated, so how could these lackeys dare to fight against Chu Fengmian? All of them had fawning expressions on their faces. Begging for mercy? You know your mistake? But it's too late. Chu Fengmian's expression was cold. This kind of fawning was useless against Chu Fengmian. Everyone, hand over all your contribution points. Chu Fengmian had forgotten about this matter when he defeated Niu Feng and Ma Yun. But the two of them were newcomers, so they probably didn't have any contribution points. However, many of the Storm Assembly's disciples in front of him were old foxes who had been in the outer sect for a long time. Each of them had probably accumulated a lot of merit points. Chu Fengmian needed a large amount of contribution points to exchange for a cave abode on the sacred mountain. But it wasn't a big deal since it was much faster than robbing. Since these disciples had delivered themselves to his doorstep, Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't let them go. What? You want us to hand over all our contribution points? When the disciples heard Chu Fengmian's words, their faces turned pale. They had accumulated their contribution points over the years. Now that they had to hand it all over, their hearts ached. Although they were terrified of Chu Fengmian, none of them were willing to hand over their contribution points. What? You're not willing? Chu Fengmian's eyes were ice cold to the extreme when he saw the reactions of these people. His tone also revealed some displeasure. Since it's like that, then I'll take 90% of your Saint Blood Essence as compensation for my losses. After saying that, Chu Fengmian was about to attack. I'm willing to pay. A wind cloud gathering disciple hastily said. He immediately took out his identity badge and handed it over to Chu Fengmian. The remaining wind cloud gathering disciples also hurriedly handed over their identity tokens. They were afraid that Chu Fengmian would attack if they were too slow. Chu Fengmian's words were not a joke. Niu Feng and Ma Yun from before were already examples. If 90% of their blood essence was taken away, they would become the same as Niu Feng and Ma Yun. They would be at the bottom of the North Sea Academy's outer circle. But no one wanted that. The disciples of the Wind Cloud handed over their identity badges one after another. Chu Fengmian's mind moved, and all the merit points were transferred to Chu Fengmian's identity card. Only 200 points? So little? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but frown. The amount was much less than what Chu Fengmian had imagined. Chu Fengmian had snatched the identity badges of 7 Wind Cloud gathering disciples. But now, there are only 200 plus merit points. One must know that it would cost at least 10,000 merit points to exchange for the Saint Mountain's cultivation. 200 plus merit points was simply a drop in the ocean. This is the merit points that we've accumulated for several years. A Wind Cloud gathering disciple couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. 10 merit points for a single mission is already pretty good. Outer sect disciples like us aren't strong enough, so we can only take on these kinds of missions. Only inner sect disciples, or even core disciples, can take on those kinds of missions that give hundreds of merit points at a time. Outer disciples were at the bottom of the North Sea Academy's hierarchy. Cultivating in the Saint Mountain was an extremely expensive matter. Chu Fengmian had forgotten about this. All right, since you've all obediently handed over your merit points, all of you can leave. Chu Fengmian glanced at the wind cloud gathering disciples and coldly said, with a thought, the pressure on the disciples of the storm assembly dissipated. Yes, yes. The wind cloud gathering disciples left one after another as if they had been pardoned. Chu Fengmian was lenient towards these people. However, it wasn't because he was soft-hearted, but because he didn't want to be too conspicuous. He had just arrived at the North Sea Academy. Crippling Yo Feng and Ma Yin wasn't a big deal. The two of them were just newcomers. They didn't have any relationship with each other. Crippling them wasn't a big deal. However, many of these wind cloud gathering disciples were old foxes in the North Sea Academy. Each of them had some relationship with inner disciples and even elders. If he were to rashly cripple them, there might be people who would suddenly appear to deal with Chu Fengmian. It wasn't worth it to cause trouble for such an outer disciple. Not to mention, Chu Fengmian had already established his prestige by defeating Wu Fengyan. These people probably wouldn't dare to be enemies with Chu Fengmian for the rest of their lives. Although these people were released, the wind cloud gathering was completely finished. Even Wu Fengyan had to kneel before Chu Fengmian. How would the wind cloud gathering have any face left in the North Sea Academy? The wind cloud gathering is actually finished. It was destroyed by Chu Fengmian. Some disciples couldn't help sighing. The wind cloud gathering was considered a small force in the outer sect. They didn't expect that it would be destroyed by a newcomer like Chu Fengmian. It's over. The wind cloud gathering usually bullied us. It's just that they didn't dare to provoke the top 10 on the mortal ranking. That's why they were able to survive until now. It's indeed faster to get rid of such a tumor. The wind cloud gathering's people kicked an iron plate today. It's their retribution. Everyone couldn't help feeling satisfied in their hearts. The wind cloud gathering's reputation wasn't good. They bullied disciples and seized resources. Many people were cheering for their destruction today. It seems like your wind cloud gathering is finished. After dealing with the wind cloud gathering disciples, Chu Fengmian placed all his attention on Wu Fengyan. I asked you to hand over your contribution points. It seems like you're not going to follow my instructions. Chu Fengmian looked at Wu Fengyan with interest. Chapter 470. When Chu Fengmian asked them to hand over their contribution points, Wu Fengyan was the only one who was unwilling to do so. Although Wu Fengyan was defeated, he was still unwilling to accept it. Command? You think you're qualified to command me? Wu Fengyan looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted angrily. I'm not like that group of trash. I'm about to be promoted to an inner disciple and have the Academy's attention. If you dare to cripple my cultivation today, the Academy won't let you off. Wait until I'm promoted to an inner disciple. In a few months, I'll defeat you once and for all. Wu Fengyan was kneeling on the ground, but his arrogance didn't diminish. He was confident that Chu Fengmian wouldn't dare to do anything to him. After all, every action of such a prominent figure would be valued by the Academy. If Chu Fengmian crippled him, the Academy would definitely blame him. However, who said that there were only two options? Crippling Wu Fengyan or letting him go? In Chu Fengmian's heart, there was a third option. All heaven's death. Under my control, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. With a thought, a black spiritual energy appeared in Chu Fengmian's palm. Without warning, he struck Wu Fengyan's forehead. This black spiritual energy was extremely well hidden, and no one noticed it at all. Wu Fengyan's face suddenly changed into an extremely respectful expression. Then, Chu Fengmian pretended to whisper something in Wu Fengyan's ear. Wu Fengyan knelt on the ground and spoke respectfully to Chu Fengmian. I, Wu Fengyan, am willing to submit to the young master and work for him. The loyalty and respect on Wu Fengyan's face couldn't be faked. This sudden change was simply incomprehensible to countless people. Wu Fengyan, who was extremely arrogant and wanted to fight Chu Fengmian, had now obediently submitted to Chu Fengmian. This was simply beyond anyone's imagination. What's going on? Why did Wu Fengyan's attitude change so drastically? What did Chu Fengmian whisper in Wu Fengyan's ear? Everyone was incomparably shocked at the sudden change in front of them. In their opinion, Wu Fengyan had chosen to submit to Chu Fengmian with just a whisper. It was impossible for them to see through the mystery behind this. Only the eyes of the two figures in the distant sky involuntarily flickered, as if they had sensed something. Brother Yin, you've noticed it too, right? This is Chu Fengyan's method. These two figures were hiding in the sky, looking at Chu Fengyan. One of them said, thoughtfully. He seemed to have noticed Chu Fengyan's actions. Wu Fengyan should be controlled by some kind of seal. However, I have never seen what seal it is. The other cultivator, Brother Yun, said in a low voice. I didn't expect Wu Fengyan to be defeated. This brat's strength is indeed strange. Moreover, he is only at the wind controlling realm. It's not surprising for a few geniuses to appear in the vast northern region. With our strength, defeating him won't be a problem, one of the cultivators said with a smile. However, this person's strength is probably enough to reach the top 3 on the mortal ranking. He's only below you and me. Oh, Brother Yi actually thinks so highly of this person? Brother Yun said after pondering for a moment. We can find an opportunity to meet him. Let's wait and see what this brat's background is. Although he's a newcomer, he's terrifyingly strong. However, it's not a bad idea to find an opportunity to plant a heart demon in his heart. It's not impossible to restrict his development. After all, it's not a good thing for us if such a genius really rises. The other cultivator, Brother Yi, said inwardly. After chatting for a while, the two figures disappeared in the sky. Their conversation was concealed, but it couldn't escape Chu Fengyan's spiritual consciousness. He heard everything. The corner of Chu Fengyan's mouth curled into a sneer. Sure enough, his rise in the Northern Sea Academy would definitely arouse the dissatisfaction of some experts. However, Chu Fengyan didn't care. If he wanted to become a true expert, he naturally had to go through countless tempering. These people would sooner or later become his stepping stones. Wu Fengyan, bring me to your cave. Chu Fengyan turned his head and said to Wu Fengyan. Although Chu Fengyan's cave was the best in this mountain range was the most barren in the Northern Sea Academy. Wu Fengyan's cave was obviously better than this, so Chu Fengyan naturally wanted to take it away. Yes, Wu Fengyan said respectfully and flew away. At the same time, Chu Fengyan's figure followed closely behind and left. This battle could be considered as the battle where Chu Fengyan stood out. The news of this year's newcomer's rise had already spread in the outer sect. Chu Fengyan naturally didn't care about this matter. Now, Chu Fengyan and Wu Fengyan arrived at another mountain range. Young Lord, this mountain range is the Earth Mountain Range. It's an 8th grade mountain range in the Northern Sea Academy. My cave is within it. Wu Fengyan looked at the mountain range before him and slowly explained to Chu Fengyan. Us outer sect disciples can only occupy an 8th grade mountain range at most. Only the top 10 on the mortal ranking can occupy a 7th grade mountain range. My strength isn't enough, but my cave is considered the best among the 8th grade mountain ranges. The mountain ranges in the Northern Sea Academy were divided into 9 grades. The 1st grade was the best, and the 9th grade was the worst. The mountain range that Chu Fengyan was in belonged to the last grade of the 9 grades. Even the smallest cave abode in this 8th grade mountain range, the Diyuan mountain range, had much richer spiritual qi than the cave abode Chu Feng had just slept in. Many of the larger cave abodes had spiritual qi that was hundreds of times richer. Wu Fengyan's cave was located in the best one in the Earth Mountain Range. Chu Fengyan and Wu Fengyan swaggered into the cave. Indeed, Chu Fengyan felt that the spiritual energy in the surroundings was much richer. Training in this cave dwelling is somewhat effective. However, the effect is negligible. With my current strength, I'm afraid that I will need a cave dwelling in a grade 6 mountain range. Even a cave dwelling in a grade 5 mountain range would be of great use to me. Chu Fengyan thought to himself as he sat in the cave and felt the spiritual energy in the surroundings. Chapter 471. The higher one's realm was the more spiritual qi one would need to cultivate. In Wu Fengyan's cave, Chu Fengyan could only barely cultivate, but the effects were minimal. Chu Fengyan had to obtain a cave in a higher grade mountain range. However, among the outer disciples, Only the top 10 on the mortal ranking could obtain a cave in a 7th grade mountain range. As for the higher grades, they had to be inner disciples or core disciples. Only if one had made a great contribution to the sect would they be directly bestowed with it. My current strength has reached a bottleneck, so it's fine. Once I break through, I won't be far from becoming an inner disciple. At that time, I'll go and fight for it, Chu Fengmian said in a low voice. Suddenly, he recalled the conversation between the two people in the sky and asked Wu Fengmian, "Among the top 10 on the mortal ranking, is there anyone with the surname Yi and Yun?" Judging from the tone of their conversation, they must be in the top 10 of the human list. They might even be in the top 3 of the human list. Otherwise, they wouldn't have spoken so arrogantly. "Young master, are you talking about Yi Guang and Yin Do?" Wu Fengmian respectfully replied upon hearing Chu Fengmian's words. The two of them are ranked 1st and 2nd on the mortal ranking. In terms of strength, they already have the strength to become inner disciples, but they didn't choose to do so. They've always been domineering in the outer disciples. In terms of strength, they aren't any weaker than inner disciples. It's said that Yi Yun had a fortuitous encounter. He's the descendant of a martial king and possesses the martial king's bloodline. His strength is extraordinary, and it's said that he's able to contend against many peak saints. He's not far from the life and death realm. He actually has such strength. No wonder he dared to scheme against me. Chu Fengmian murmured upon hearing Wu Fengmian's words. But even if he has the strength of a life and death realm expert, he'll still die if he dares to scheme against me. Once I step into the divine force realm, I'll be able to kill even life and death realm experts. I must first accumulate enough merit points to exchange for a chance to cultivate in the Saint Mountain. Then, I'll break through to the divine force realm. Chu Fengmian calculated in his heart. He had been stuck at the peak of the wind-controlling realm for a very long time. Right now, he had to find an opportunity to break through to the divine force realm. Chu Fengmian could sense that as long as he broke through to the divine force realm, the bloodline powers throughout his body would undergo a rapid change. It would bring endless benefits to Chu Fengmian. "How many contribution points do you have? Hand them all over," Chu Fengmian asked Wu Fengmian. "Yes." Wu Fengmian respectfully placed the identity card on the ground. Chu Fengmian transferred all the merit points to him. The merit points in his identity card had already reached 1,200 points. Wu Fengmian alone had a total of 1,000 merit points. As expected, as an influential figure in the outer sect, he has quite a lot of contribution points. A smile finally appeared on Chu Fengmian's face when he saw this number. However, even if he had obtained 1,200 points now, it was only a drop in the ocean compared to the tens of thousands of points required for each Sacred Mountain training session. Chu Fengmian had to find an opportunity to earn some contribution points. In the Northern Sea Academy, there were some missions that were extremely difficult. However, once completed, one could easily obtain tens of thousands of contribution points. Chu Fengmian planned to accept such missions directly to obtain a large amount of contribution points in one fell swoop. 8 days later, Chu Fengmian cultivated slowly in the cave. He didn't cultivate at all. Instead, he just restored his body's condition to the most perfect state. "Time's up," Chu Fengmian muttered to himself in a low voice. His figure then disappeared from the cave. The square was now filled with people. 10 days after entering the academy, it was the day of the mission assessment. At a glance, all the new outer disciples were gathered in the square. Apart from these outer disciples, there were also dozens of purple-clothed disciples in the square. Their purple-clothed clothes were completely different from the blue-clothed outer disciples. These purple-clothed disciples weren't outer disciples. They were inner disciples of the Northern Sea Academy. Every one of them was stronger than an ordinary peak saint. These inner disciples were all standing in front of the square. Their auras were like rainbows. Every one of them was a proud genius. So terrifying. Is this the power of an inner disciple? These people's eyes are like sharp swords. We don't dare to look them in the eye. Discussions broke out one after another. To these outer disciples, an inner disciple was a kind of superior existence that they could only look up to Chu Fengmian came to the square and looked around. However, he didn't see Han Yueli's figure. Not only Han Yueli, but Yin Gu, Mu Yizhan, and the others were also taken away by the elders. Those who were accepted as disciples were also not in the assessment. These people were directly promoted to inner disciples. Moreover, they were the disciples of the elders. Naturally, they didn't need to go through such a tedious assessment. Is that kid Chu Fengmian? This year's newcomer king is said to be in the limelight. When an inner disciple saw Chu Fengmian, he activated his spiritual consciousness and scanned Chu Fengmian. It was as if he wanted to see through everything about Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian was already prepared. He had all his trump cards and only showed his strength. Even the elders couldn't see through his concealment. Naturally, it was impossible for a mere inner sect disciple to see through it. So what if he's in the limelight? He doesn't know how to endure. Such a person will die in the hands of others sooner or later. Another inner disciple glanced at Chu Fengmian and said with disdain, "At such a young age, he has a few fortuitous encounters and thinks that he can be arrogant. However, he's just a piece of trash. In the entire outer sect, only Yi Guang and Yundo have some strength. The rest are all trash." This inner disciple's words were extremely arrogant. He didn't put the entire outer sect in his eyes. However, these inner disciples were all existences that surpassed the outer sect. Any one of them who came to the outer sect was an existence that could be called a king. Naturally, they wouldn't care about a mere outer sect disciple. That's true. This kid is at most a fish in a pond. He's arrogant in a small pond. He's nothing compared to a river or a lake. Another inner disciple said. While they were discussing, an old man suddenly descended from the sky. It was Elder Su Ling. When they saw Elder Su Ling, these inner disciples stopped talking and waited for Elder Su Ling to speak. Chapter 472. Although all of you have passed the test and become outer disciples of our Northern Mang Academy, in order to verify your loyalty, you must complete a mission given by the Academy. Elder Su Ling stood in the air with his hands clasped behind his back and said coldly, "Only after completing this mission will you be considered a true disciple of our Bei Mang Academy. These inner disciples will lead you to complete the mission. Now, you will be assigned to your teams. You, follow me." The inner disciples walked into the crowd and picked their teams. Each of them picked at least a few people and at most dozens of people. The outer court examinees were led by inner court disciples. Firstly, it was to ensure their safety. Secondly, it was a form of surveillance. For a force like the Bei Mang Academy, there were countless enemies and spies would often infiltrate the academy. The outer disciple assessment was to test the loyalty of the outer disciples. You follow me. A cold-looking inner sect disciple took Chu Fengmian away. Other than Chu Fengmian, there were 3 other people. A total of 4 people were sent away by the inner disciple. This person's strength is not weak. He's even stronger than Tuoba Ding. Chu Fengmian looked at the inner disciple in front of him and thought to himself, this person's strength should have reach 4. He was considered an average martial artist in the inner disciples. In fact, there were no experts in this batch of inner disciples. As for the earth-ranking martial artists, there was not a single one. After all, these powerful martial artists were all cultivating. How would they have the time to help with the mission? A wise-looking cultivator, who was also one of the chosen outer sect disciples, said, "I'm Mang Tong. How should I address you all? It's fate that we're gathered together to complete the mission. Why don't we be friends?" "I'm Hua Xian," a martial artist said. His tone was very normal. "Chu Mu." When it was Chu Fengmian's turn, Mang Tong smiled and said before Chu Fengmian could say anything, "Brother Chu, you don't have to say anything. Who doesn't know this year's newcomer king?" "Yes." Beside him, Chu Mu and Hua Xian nodded. They all knew Chu Fengmian. After all, Chu Fengmian had crippled 2 newcomers on his first day in the outer disciples. Then, he destroyed the Wind Cloud Association. Even Wu Fengyun, who was ranked 11th on the mortal ranking, was defeated by Chu Fengmian. How could they not know such an influential figure? Mang Tong said nervously, "I don't know if we can complete this mission. It said that there will be people who fall in the assessment mission every year. Hua Xin said coldly. The Northern Mang Academy's assessment isn't that easy. If you don't have strength, you'll fall even if you sneak in. Chu Fengyan, don't worry. Since we're going to complete this mission together, we naturally have to work together. Mang Tong's face finally calmed. Brother Chu's, we'll definitely complete the mission. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Hurry up and come over. After selecting the candidates, that inner disciple said coldly, all of you have been chosen by me and are now my people. This time, all of you must listen to me. Do you understand? What's your name, senior brother? Mang Tong suddenly asked after being selected. And what's our mission this time? So much nonsense. My name is Lei Ju, and this is a mission. I'm responsible for destroying an altar of the Earth Demon sect. As for the specifics, you won't understand even if I tell you, so just obediently follow my instructions. Lei Ju said impatiently. If you don't listen to me and get in my way, you'll die in this mission. I'll tell you the details later. Follow me. Lei Ju turned into a streak of light and left. Chu Fengyan and the other three looked at each other and turned into streaks of light to chase after Lei Ju. With Lei Ju leading the way, they flew continuously for 6 hours before stopping. Except for Chu Fengyan, the other three were panting when they stopped flying. They sat on the ground and rested. With their strength, they had almost exhausted their spiritual energy after flying for 6 hours. They disregarded everything and rested on the ground. Only Chu Fengyan was calm. Although he didn't look relaxed, he wasn't panting like that. However, this was just Chu Fengyan's pretense. A bunch of trash. You've used up so much spiritual energy after flying for 6 hours. How will you face the enemy in the future? Lei Ju glanced at them and snorted. He glanced at Chu Fengyan, and the disdain in his eyes disappeared. He didn't say anything to Chu Fengyan. After resting for half an hour, they set off again. After resting for 3 or 4 times, they finally followed Lei Ju and arrived at the edge of the Northern Sea Academy. There is an extremely strange space at the edge of the Northern Sea Academy. Lei Ju glanced at his surroundings. With a move of his feet, he directly stepped into this strange space. Everyone looked at the space in front of them and hesitated. This, Lei Ju scolded loudly. You bunch of trash, hurry up and follow me. Chu Fengyan glanced at the strange space. His eyes flickered and he stepped into it. Let's go. Seeing that Chu Fengyan had walked in, the remaining 3 also moved their feet and strode in with large strides. Entering the space, Chu Fengyan felt that the surrounding spiritual energy was completely different from the Northern Sea Academy. The spiritual energy here was extremely rich, but it wasn't like the spiritual energy in the Northern Sea Academy. It was extremely pure and could be directly devoured and refined. The spiritual energy here was extremely turbid. There were countless demonic auras in the spiritual energy, so it was extremely turbid. Looking around, there wasn't much vitality. It seemed like this place was a demon domain. Hua Xin glanced around and said with a hint of nervousness in his eyes, "Where is this? Have we left the Northern Sea Academy?" "This is the Earth Demon world, not the Northern Sea Academy," Lei Ju replied coldly. "This Earth Demon world is the lair of the Earth Demon sect. You have to be careful. Otherwise, if you provoke the great demon of the Earth Demon sect, I won't save you." Earth Demon world, Earth Demon sect. Hearing these 2 names, the others also revealed some nervousness in their eyes. This place was actually the lair of the Earth Demon sect. Chapter 473. The Earth Demon world was the lair of the Earth Demon sect. Like the Baimang Academy, it was an independent space. The Earth Demon sect was one of the biggest sects in the North region. Although it was hidden underground, no one in the North region had not heard of the existence of the Earth Demon sect. The Baimang Academy was one of the archenemies of the Earth Demon sect. One of them was in the open, while the other was in the dark. Now, their mission was to come to the lair of the Earth Demon sect. If the experts of the Earth Demon sect knew about it, Chu Fengyan and the rest would definitely be killed. Every year, there were many disciples who died in the hands of the Earth Demon sect. After all, the Northern Mang Academy and the Earth Demon sect could be said to be mortal enemies. Shut up. Lei Ju glared at Hua Xin and snorted. Follow me obediently, and nothing will happen. This is only the periphery of the Earth Demon world. There are few people here. Our mission is to go to a cave and destroy an altar. Follow me. After saying that, Lei Ju's figure moved and turned into a ray of light and flew away. Chu Fengmian and the rest hurriedly followed. This was not the Beimang Academy. In the Earth Demon world, there were many dangers. They could only follow Lei Ju. Along the way, everyone was very careful and nervous. They were afraid that they would be discovered. Finally, 2 hours later, the group landed in front of a cave. This cave contained an endless amount of demonic will. Waves of demonic will were emitted from this cave. The demonic will was extremely dense. If a saint were to enter, he would be eroded and demonized by the demonic will. The entire Earth Demon world was like a demon's domain. For the demonic cultivators of the Earth Demon sect, it was definitely a paradise. But for Chu Fengmian and the rest, the demonic will was extremely fatal. Once it eroded their bodies, they would be affected by the demonic will. If it was light, the heart demon would be deep. If it was serious, they would be controlled by the demonic nature and become a demon. Looking at the countless demonic wills that emerged from the cave, everyone's faces revealed fear. The demonic wills were strong enough to invade a warrior's body, causing everyone to want to escape. However, no one dared to escape. This was the Earth Devil world. Even if they wanted to escape, there was nowhere to run. Without Lei Ju's guidance, they might not even be able to find the way back. If he didn't run, he still had a chance to live. But if he did, then even if he returned to the North Sea Academy, he would be considered a deserter and would be killed. Therefore, even though there were dangers everywhere, no one dared to run away. Let's go. Lei Ju glanced to the cave, then took a step forward and walked in. Hurry up and come in. If you provoke the Earth Demon Sex Devils, you'll all die together. The moment Lei Ju entered, he did not forget to threaten in a cold voice. Who's running away? Who will die? Let's go in. Although Qin Mang's face was filled with fear, he could only brace himself and enter. Indeed, at this time, there was already no way to escape. It's fine. As long as we complete the mission, we can leave immediately. Chu Fengmian chuckled and stepped into the cave. Although this cave seemed to be filled with danger, Chu Fengmian was not afraid at all. If he was afraid of this little bit of danger, then what was the point of cultivating martial arts? Which expert didn't undergo countless changes to become one? Let's go. The other three exchanged glances with each other. With a firm voice, all of them stepped into the cave. At a glance, this cave was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. There were countless branches, and it looked very complicated. No one knew how big it was. The people of the Earth Demon sect like to dig this kind of cave and cultivate their devil will. This should be one of the branches of the Earth Demon sect. Chu Fengmian thought secretly as he stepped into the cave. Chu Fengmian had a rough idea of the mission this time. There should be an altar in this cave, and the mission of Chu Fengmian and the others was to destroy the altar. Chu Fengmian opened his spiritual consciousness and found that there was indeed a huge fluctuation of spiritual energy in the deepest part of the cave. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't see clearly what it was. His spiritual consciousness was greatly affected by the devil will, but it should be the location of the altar. The devil will in this cave is very troublesome. Chu Fengmian followed Lei Ju and walked into the depths of the cave. Although the devil will at the periphery of the cave was terrifying, it was still easy to deal with their strength. However, as Chu Fengmian and the others walked deeper into the cave, the devil will emitted became more and more powerful. It was almost to the point where they had to use their spiritual energy to resist it. The demonic will here must be resisted with spiritual energy. Lei Ju suddenly said and pointed at Mang Tong. You, walk in the front and use your spiritual energy to resist the devil will. What? You want me to resist it alone? Mang Tong's face changed when he heard Lei Ju's words. The fiendish intent here was simply corroding this martial artist's heart at every moment. It was not a problem for Mang Tong to resist his own devil will, but now Lei Ju wanted him to resist the devil will of 5 people. This made his face change. If he resisted the devil will of 5 people, he would soon use up all of his spiritual energy. In such a dangerous environment, without spiritual energy, he might die any time. Lei Ju meant to use Mang Tong as cannon fodder and let him lead the way. What? You don't want to? Lei Ju looked at Mang Tong's reaction and said with a cold face, "Trash, you do what I ask you to do. If you don't resist the devil will, I will kill you now." While speaking, Lei Ju's eyes were full of dissatisfaction and murderous intent. The threat in his words was not fake. He might attack at any time. No one expected Lei Ju to turn hostile at this time. Mang Tong's face showed some panic, and he stammered, You are a disciple of the North Sea Academy. If you kill me, you will be punished by the Academy." Lei Ju's face showed some disdain when he heard Mang Tong's words. "If I kill you, Trash, the Academy will not punish me. Moreover, in the Earth Demon world, who will know? Boy, quickly resist the devil will. If you complete the task, I will give you some benefits. If you don't know what's good for you, I will kill you now." Chapter 474. Lei Ju's tone was merciless and extremely cold. After all, he was an inner sect disciple with a high status. Even if he killed a few outer sect disciples, he would not be punished. Moreover, in the Earth Demon realm, even if Lei Ju killed someone, who would know? Now, everyone felt a chill down their spine. They had followed Lei Ju to this place, but there was no way out. It will be much easier for us to resist the demonic will here by ourselves. Suddenly, Chu Fengyan slowly spoke. If one person goes to resist the demonic will, he will quickly exhaust his spiritual energy and be eroded by the demonic will. It will be even more troublesome. If he is eroded by the demonic will and becomes a demon, I will kill him first. Lei Ju's tone was extremely cold. Moreover, you are just a group of trash to resist the demonic will. Why do you think I chose you? Because I want you to resist the demonic will. Now, if you know what's good for you and stand out to resist the demonic will, maybe some of you can survive. If you want to resist, you will die without a doubt. The moment Lei Ju spoke, the spiritual energy in his body was displayed without any concealment. His spiritual energy was extremely strong. The power of the spiritual energy was suppressing Chu Fengyan and the other 3. Under the pressure, the 3 who were slightly weaker turned pale and did not even have the strength to resist. Only Chu Fengyan's face was solemn. Under the pressure, he could still resist a little, but he deliberately pretended that it was extremely difficult. "Oh, you can resist my pressure, so you have some strength. Well, you want to stand out, right? You will go to the front and resist the demonic will." Lei Ju glanced at Chu Fengyan and coldly snorted. His tone was completely like an order. "Senior brother Lei, let me do it." At the side, Mang Tong heard Lei Ju's words and could not help but speak up. Chu Fengyan only spoke up for him and was implicated. This made Mang Tong feel bad, so he directly spoke up. "I will be in charge of resisting the demonic will." "Shut up. Chu Fengyan, you will resist the demonic will." Lei Ju's eyes were filled with killing intent. All of a sudden, the spiritual energy in his body condensed. The moment this spiritual energy emerged, it caused Chu Fengyan's eyes to reveal a trace of dread. In the end, Chu Fengyan's eyes flickered. Chu Fengyan showed some reluctance on his face, but he still walked to the front of the crowd and condensed spiritual power to resist the erosion of the demonic will. However, Chu Fengyan was laughing coldly in his heart. He would naturally remember everything that Lei Ju had done. It wasn't that he didn't want to repay him, it was just that it wasn't time yet. With Chu Fengyan's personality, how could he allow Lei Ju to bully him like this? However, on Chu Fengyan's face, there was a look of unwillingness. It was so vivid that it seemed like he had no choice but to submit to Lei Ju's strength. Traces of sympathy appeared in the eyes of the other 3. This was especially true for Mang Tong, whose eyes were filled with regret. However, no one dared to speak. Strength reigned supreme. Without strength, everything is just empty talk. Lei Ju glanced at Chu Fengyan and said coldly, "At least you know what's good for you. Let's go deeper into the cave." Chu Fengmian walked to the front. He condensed spiritual power to resist the erosion of the demonic will and continued to walk deeper into the cave. The deeper they went into the cave, the stronger the demonic will became. The demonic will condensed into numerous demons. They bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced on Chu Fengmian. Although the strength of these demons wasn't strong, there were many of them. Moreover, they could condense at any time and any place to launch a sneak attack on Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had no time to rest and recover his spiritual power. When they were about to reach the deepest part of the cave, Chu Fengmian's spiritual power was almost depleted. Lei Ju looked at Chu Fengmian and saw that his spiritual power was indeed about to be depleted. Only then did he slowly speak to Mang Tong. "Boy, you go back. It's your turn to resist the demonic will." "Okay." Mang Tong hurriedly took Chu Fengmian's place. He looked at Chu Fengmian with a guilty expression and hurriedly went up to resist the demonic will. As for Chu Fengmian, he pretended to be extremely weak and followed at the back of the group to recover his spiritual power. Of course, Chu Fengmian deliberately pretended to be weak. He had the holy pulse and could replenish his spiritual power at any time. It was impossible for his spiritual power to be depleted. Now, as long as Chu Fengmian was willing, he could replenish his spiritual power at any time and restore it to its most perfect state. The secret of the Divine Meridian was too huge. Although the Divine Meridian had been passed down in the 9 regions, no one had ever truly opened it. Chu Fengmian didn't want to reveal such a secret so easily. Naturally, he pretended that his spiritual power was depleted. At the same time, Chu Fengmian also wanted to see Lei Ju. Chu Fengmian had already felt that there was something unusual about this underground place. The group continued to walk deeper into the cave. Mang Tong's strength was obviously not as strong as Chu Fengmian's. Soon, his spiritual power was depleted and another person took his place. When they were about to reach the deepest part of the cave, Chu Fengmian and the other 3 had already exhausted their spiritual power. Lei Ju glanced at Chu Fengmian and the others and said coldly, "You bunch of trash, you've done pretty well. You actually managed to reach this step." Mang Tong smiled helplessly. "Next, we'll have to rely on Senior Brother Lei." Now that they had used up all their spiritual energy to resist the demonic will, they could only pin their hopes on Lei Ju. Lei Ju glanced at Mang Tong and his eyes flickered. "The altar is in front of us. You don't have to worry." After saying that, Lei Ju walked to the front and led Chu Fengmian and the others to the deepest part of the cave. Why hadn't we met anyone from the Earth Demon sect along the way? Behind them, Mang Tong whispered to each other, "I don't know. Maybe there's no one from the Earth Demon sect in this cave." Hua Xian curled his lips and said, "How unlucky we are to encounter such a task. Forget it. Let's not complain. Our luck is not bad this time. At least we didn't meet anyone from the Earth Demon sect. There's no danger." Chu Mu said soberly. Chu Fengmian was the only one who remained silent. His spiritual awareness had already scanned the area and was aware of every movement in the surroundings. When they came close, Chu Fengmian's spiritual awareness could finally see clearly what was around the altar. "Thank you very much. People call me Moon. 153 ***0621. Thanks for the reward from 2 brothers." Chapter 475. While Chu Fengmian was deep in thought, Lei Ju led Chu Fengmian and his group to the deepest part of the cave. The demonic will in the cave was emitted from the demonic will. Suddenly, everyone stopped. "We're here. Is this an altar? What are these things?" Beside Chu Fengmian, countless cries of surprise suddenly rang out, interrupting Chu Fengmian's train of thought. Chu Fengmian looked ahead and saw an incomparably huge blood-red altar in the deepest part of the cave. The blood-red altar was emitting demonic will at every moment, turning into the appearance of demons. Countless demons were flying around. The demonic will in the cave came from the altar. There were countless people standing around the altar. They seemed to be guarding the altar. However, there was no vitality in these people. Instead, their eyes were cold, and their bodies were emitting demonic will as if they were deeply implanted. These people were ugly and ferocious to the extreme. No one could see their original appearance, as if they were dead. Demonic slaves? Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised and blurted out. These people were no longer humans, but half-dead creatures, demonic slaves. These demonic slaves were captured by some demonic Dao experts. They would trap those experts and use demonic will to influence them, turning them into demonic slaves that only knew how to kill. After all, this demonic slave method was much more sinful than being controlled by restrictions. Although restrictions could control people, they were still humans. However, this demonic slave method could turn people into demonic slaves that were neither human nor ghost. They would lose their consciousness and be manipulated by others. This demonic slave method originally belonged to Nine Demon City. Tens of thousands of years ago, before Nine Demon City became one of the 7 major sects, Nine Demon City had wantonly captured experts and geniuses of the 9 regions and refined them into demonic slaves. At that time, Nine Demon City had formed the notorious demonic slave army, capturing countless experts and geniuses of the 9 regions. Later, when Nine Demon City joined the 7 major sects, they stopped using this demonic slave method because it was too cruel and went against the harmony of the heavens. Unexpectedly, the Earth Demon sect was secretly using this demonic slave method to create demonic slaves. This altar is where the demonic slaves are refined. Now, the North Sea Academy's mission should be to destroy this altar, but why are these demonic slaves not moving? Chu Fengmian suddenly frowned, feeling that something was wrong. These demonic slaves should have noticed Chu Fengmian and his group when they stepped into the cave. However, along the way, not a single demonic slave came out to stop them, as if they were ordered to not take the initiative to attack. There's someone behind these demonic slaves. Who is it? Chu Fengmian suddenly had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and his expression abruptly changed. Not good. Retreat. Kid, now have you figured out? It's too late. Suddenly, a cold sneered Lei's voice, Lei Ju's voice, standing in front of Chus. Suddenly, the space of the cave of the Tao, of the Tao of the Tao. The Jlays, Jews, senior, what's going on? Mang Tong looked at Lei Ju, and his face suddenly changed. He didn't know what was going on, but looking at the situation in front of him, there was definitely a huge change. The other two were also extremely flustered. Jiji, Lei Ju, you've done well. This time, you brought a lot of good stuff. 2 blood-red arms suddenly appeared. Then, a black-robed man suddenly appeared from the surrounding space. The moment the black-robed man appeared, the surrounding space seemed to be suppressed, and a pressure immediately enveloped the area. Life and death realm. Feeling the terrifying spiritual energy of the black-robed man, the faces of the 3 people standing beside Chu Fengmian turned deathly pale. Now, the one who appeared was actually a life and death realm expert. Demon Lord Dark Ancient, long time no see. Lei Ju didn't show the slightest bit of nervousness when he saw the black-robed man. Instead, he looked extremely familiar. How is it? These people's aptitudes aren't bad, right? Refining them into demon slaves should give them decent strength. Those 3 are extremely ordinary and can only be refined into the most ordinary demon slaves. However, this one is somewhat special. He actually has the bloodline of the true dragon clan and can be refined into a demon slave king. Demon Lord Dark Ancient was high and mighty. He looked at Chu Fengmian's group as if he was selecting goods. The goods were Chu Fengmian's group, the buyer was Demon Lord Dark Ancient, and the seller was Lei Ju. Lei Ju, you actually colluded with Earth Demon Sect's people to destroy your fellow sect members? Damn it, we were all fooled by Lei Ju. Go, run. Let's escape and tell the Academy about him. Now that things had developed to this point, it was clear what had happened with just a glance. This Lei Ju had actually colluded with Earth Demon Sect. On the surface, he had brought Chu Fengmian here to complete the task, but in reality, he wanted to sell Chu Fengmian's group to Demon Lord Dark Ancient and refine them into demon slaves. Everyone activated the spiritual energy that they had just recovered and ran out of the cave, trying to escape. Everyone knew that only death awaited them if they continued to stay here. Want to escape? Do you think you can escape? Lei Ju snorted coldly. His body moved, and suddenly he threw out a punch. In this punch, all of his strength burst out, and he did not hold back at all. He wanted to completely suppress Chu Fengyan's group. The power of this punch caused Mang Tong and the other two to spit out a mouthful of blood. Their strength was far from being able to contend against Lei Ju, and now they had exhausted all of their spiritual energy. Now, they did not even have the strength to resist Lei Ju's power. Under this punch, they were almost suppressed. You bunch of trash, it's better for you to be refined into demon slaves, and I can still get some benefits. Why do you think I chose you? Even if you have some value, now is the time for you to show your value. Lei Ju's eyes were extremely cold, and he shouted coldly, "Suppress all of you!" Boom, boom, boom. Along with the power of this punch, the fist wind was about to completely suppress Chu Fengyan's group. This force was getting stronger and stronger, and it was almost impossible to resist. Damn it, let's fight it out with him. Even if we die, we can't become demon slaves that are neither human nor ghost. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.